Yes.
The lead Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. This is Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1638 of the War News stream. And tonight we have very big news out of the usual regions, Ukraine, Russia, and Iran. And right now we're getting word that Ukraine has slammed Crimea with a massive drone attack this evening, striking several different targets. And also, Russia's fuel crisis has begun spiraling out of control way worse than the last time. Apparently now it's got Putin really panicking. And also, Iran has threatened missile strikes on Europe if the war keeps escalating in the Middle East. And it's good to see you all once again.
And, of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news from around the world, as we have been able to hear major news, not only coming from Eastern Europe, but also from the Middle East and also NATO once again today as well, including some minor developments from East Asia and the United States of America. Major news has emerged over the course of the past 24 hours as the Russian Federation has now entered what can be described as the culmination of the fuel crisis at its most worst degree. We have now seen that almost the entirety of the Russian Federation is now without fuel, and most of the Russian Federation has ground to a screeching halt, largely paralyzed as a result of the lack of fuel throughout most of the country. This is eclipsing, in terms of size and severity, the oil crisis which began, or the fuel crisis which began, only 2 months ago within the Russian Federation, where it was famously known that many of Russian oblasts were almost brought to the brink of total collapse because of the shortage of fuel. Now we understand that the fuel has reached quite literally non-existent levels in most areas of the Russian Federation, and this is now causing serious concern not only in the Russian populace, but also the Russian government. In the meantime, Ukrainian drone attacks have continued against the Russian Federation's armed forces and strategic infrastructure in the rear line areas, with another major refinery once again being hit today within the Bashkortostan Oblast, near to the city of Ufa, and we've also been able to see that within the area of the Kazan River, the Cheboksary Veneer Progress Plant had another direct hit onto an electrical substation, knocking out power to the factory, which had already been significantly damaged and prior times. We have also been able to hear that in the area of Saratov, Russian bombers were beginning to take off for attempted strikes against Ukraine tonight, and those strikes have already been underway for some time, with the cities of Kyiv and also Kryvyi Rih taking major hits, also including Zhytomyr, from these Russian drone and missile strikes that have been conducted recently. We have also been able to see the Ukrainian armed forces targeted and hit a critical number of armed forces within the area of Crimea, including the airfield of Yevpatoria and Saki, and also what appears to be some sort of an attempted attack near the Harvitsky airfield once more. Outside of this information in the war in Ukraine, NATO has once again conducted another large air action near to the Kaliningrad Oblast of the Russian Federation today, with another large number of tankers and AWACS aircraft airborne and operating near to the airspace of the Russian Federation's Kaliningrad region and the Leningrad military district. Poland is also still preparing for war, as another government statement has come out once again today, stating that the risk of conflict with the Russian Federation is high, and that the Polish government must remain vigilant, to be aware and to be prepared for any eventual threats which may face the Polish nation, including that upcoming war with the Russian Federation. We have also been able to hear that outside the news in Eastern Europe, the Middle East has carried on as one would expect. The Islamic Republic of Iran has now sensed weakness on the part of the United States of America, and is now once again threatening not only the Gulf states that if the United States begin strikes and those countries are hosting U.S. forces, that they will strike and destroy military facilities and infrastructure within those nations. They have now expanded the threat to the entirety of the European Union that's within range of Iranian intermediate range ballistic missiles, threatening that if any countries are involved in housing, forcing, or supporting U.S. forces in the operation against the Islamic Republic of Iran that are within missile range, the Islamic Republic of Iran will also conduct attacks against those countries as well, along with the Gulf states, if the conflict resumes. This is being said because the Islamic Republic of Iran has already made it clear today that they believe that the resumption of the war is highly likely, as they are largely forcing the hand of the United States of America back into the conflict, whether or not the U.S. really wants to, or whether the president ever will realize that. In the meantime, the president of the United States has made statements that the United States completely controls the Strait of Hormuz, and therefore there's absolutely no reason for panic, and that we're going to launch an economic D-Day, the likes of which history has never seen before on any country on the history of the planet. Usual stuff. We've also been able to hear that the Hormuz isn't even important anymore, according to the president, and that the deal wasn't really that good with the Iranians anyways. And we've also now been able to hear that Iranian detection capabilities are limited, so the vital waterway of the Strait of Hormuz can continue to be used by commercial ships as long as they just stay out of visual eyesight of Iranian coastal ship batteries. So quite literally every single statement under the sun today was made about the Strait of Hormuz. We've also been able to see that the Israelis have continued their bombardments within southern Lebanon, and the North Koreans have officially said today that the president's actions in South Korea are not changing the position in foreign policy by the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, and North Korea will continue to take a hostile stance not only against South Korea, but also the United States of America as well. Before we get on into all of this major news that we have over the course of this day, it actually appears that we have breaking news coming out on air right now. So Matthew, what do we got?
Okay, so we do have a little bit of breaking news happening right now. It does appear that Poland has dispatched F-16 patrol aircraft apparently to their border right now. Just for some context, by the way, Russia's conducting a very major attack against Ukrainian civilians this evening, apparently striking Kyiv with at least 25 plus missiles, and also striking apparently very close to the Polish border on the side of Ukrainian territory. So this isn't entirely unusual. We have seen this, of course, many times in the past before, but it does keep us on edge a little bit, because, you know, for example, last time we saw a missile fly straight into Poland, and it could happen again possibly. So they send these up as a precaution, but it could be possibly something more. But of course, we don't know that just yet. It could be routine to a large degree. But Enforcer, on Flight Radar 24, do you see any NATO aircraft deployments on the Polish side, like for example refueling tankers? Do you see that?
No, we do not actually. It actually appears that Polish airspace is incredibly sparse in terms of air traffic. There's maybe about 10 aircraft in the entire airspace of Poland at the moment, and it also appears that the only military flight that we have on ADS-B transponder is actually a Ukrainian military flight, an Antonov 26, that is taken off from an unknown location in Ukraine and is currently flying across the border and into Poland as we speak. But outside that, it appears that the air policing operation has absolutely no transponders turned on, even for AWACS and refueling tankers.
Interesting. Well, we'll keep an eye on that, and I'll report back if I see any more information about that. Right now, it appears to be routine. They just simply dispatch the F-16s to the border with Ukraine to make sure no missiles are flying into Polish territory. But for right now, we'll keep an eye on it, but not too much to report else on that. But unfortunately, you can get on with the other news if you'd like to.
And moving us on into all of that news, we will be making sure to circle back to this, folks, if this becomes important at any point in the future. At the moment, it appears to be a largely routine air policing operation by the Republic of Poland. They always scramble their air force whenever there's an attack being conducted against Ukraine, and it appears that munitions are traveling into the far west of the state of Ukraine, which have a high possibility or a high risk of flying across the border and into Poland. So for right now, this appears to be a fairly routine air policing operation, but as usual, this could turn awry very quickly, much like we saw last time, where a Russian Kh-101 caliber cruise missile flew across the Ukrainian border into Poland and then exploded 50 kilometers south of Lublin on the territory of the country. So we will be keeping an eye on this. That could happen once again, but at the moment it seems to be a routine air policing operation, just to once again to restate that. But moving us on from that and into all of the other breaking news that we have for the night, we have been able to hear quite some significant developments within the Russian Federation as of late. As many of y'all will know, the Russian Federation has been dealing with a fuel crisis at this point for the past 2 months because of the Ukrainian attacks on refinery structures throughout the Russian Federation. Ukraine has gone out of its way to target AVT6 condensers and almost the entirety of all Russian refineries that are within range, which include a decent amount of them in Siberia and the entirety of them within Western Russia, which has created a significant fuel deficit for the Russian Federation. Oil and fuel are completely different logistics lines. Oil is used by the Russian Federation to be exported in its crude oil form for them to be able to make money. Fuel, however, is refined from the oil that they keep domestically, and they use that fuel to be able to run their economy and their armed forces inside of Ukraine, meaning that fuel is something that is incredibly important for the Russian Federation outside of monetary generation. And not only that, the Ukrainians have also realized that it is an Achilles heel. Due to the lack of Russian air defenses throughout the country, Ukraine has been striking and destroying over the course of this entire year almost every single refinery that is within range, and trying to cause such critical damage to most, if not all, of these refineries that they remain inoperable, if not completely unusable, for the remainder of the duration of the conflict. We have been able to see that as of today, this has started to create results that can only be described as apocalyptic for the Russian Federation economically and militarily, as we are starting to hear that at this point, the Russian Federation is now putting even more draconian sales restrictions in the Moscow area, as Moscow gas stations are reintroducing fuel limits, with Gazprom Neft restricting cells to 40 liters per vehicle and Tatneft to 50 liters of gasoline and 60 liters of diesel. AI-95 gasoline is periodically unavailable despite high prices, leading to fuel redistribution from eastern regions, causing shortages in the far east of Russia. It appears that at this moment, while we're talking about the Ukrainian drone attacks knocking out Russia's fuel capabilities, we're now getting breaking news that another refinery just got hit only moments ago. Matthew, what do we got on that?
Okay, so we have just gotten footage apparently showing that the Nizhny refinery apparently has just been struck based on the footage we're getting right now. It looks like there's already some possible smoke rising from the scene of Nizhny. We're also seeing that apparently a Pantsir air defense system was active around the oil refinery before the hit actually took place. And in fact, we have a video showing one of the drones flying in. Oh, in fact, the Pantsir missed the drone, actually. That's a reply, by the way, under Exile Nova's post, the main post right there. So check that video out after the first one. But yeah, Nizhny appears to have been hit. And that comes after the Ufa refinery was hit earlier this morning that we'll cover here shortly. So today's been a pretty costly day for the refineries.
And let's take a look at this first clip here showing the Nizhny refinery getting hit. Here's the clip. We're able to see the refinery stacks and condensers over the hillside, and this Ukrainian drone rapidly making its way into the refinery. We see the drone continuing on. I'll keep my mouse cursor where it roughly is on film.
Летит.
Somewhere off in that direction. I've even lost it at this point. Actually, we can see it once again right there, as it's still making its way towards the refinery. And we can see the impact right there on the refinery.
Dang, how about that? It's rare that we get the exact moment it hits the actual main part of a refinery like that. It's kind of unusual to get that from front to back.
Yeah, usually we don't really see that. Usually we see the secondary and tertiary hits. We never see the first strikes that take out the AVT-6 condensers. But it looks like that was a direct hit on a base of another condenser unit at the Nizhnekamsk refinery, meaning that the main operational unit required for the oil refinery to produce fuel or usable petroleum products has been knocked out at this point from this attack that only happened minutes ago. We also have additional footage here apparently showing the Pantsir S-1 air defense system, a fairly rare thing to even hear about at this point in these areas of Russia, apparently failing to intercept or shoot down these drones as they were flying into the city area. Here's that clip. You see the drone flying on in, almost right overhead. Quite loud, actually. Oh my god!
Oh my god!
Wait here! Wait here!
What is this?
It
Is this
missed.
base boosted? Like, what do you do? My
It
ears are
missed.
bleeding.
Man, it literally was right there flying by slow as a snail, and the Pantsir still missed it.
Let's watch that again. I turned it way down, folks, so that way y'all don't get your eardrums blasted out like I just did. But let's watch that again.
That was so damn loud. That was wild.
Man, I think you could even see the missile there for a second. Hold up, let me see. Yeah, there's the missile right there. You can actually see it. I was thinking you could. You can actually see the Pantsir missile. Let me go pull this up for y'all, folks. That way I can show y'all what this thing actually looks like, the Pantsir missile. So let me see if I can go grab a picture of one of these. Here we go. This is exactly what they look like. So that little sliver that you're seeing there on screen is actually this missile right here, the 57E6. These are the ones that are carried in the tubes of a Pantsir S-1 missile system, and they usually carry approximately 12 of these at a time, each one being mounted inside of its singular tube. When they fire these things, they're supposed to actually proximity fuse when they get close to a target, or basically on it, but this one seems to have had a small issue. It kind of proxy fused about 50 feet away. That's just so far away, it's just not going to do anything at all. So it looks like a munitions failure, actually. It doesn't look like a failure of the system. It looks like they have another defect or another dud munition failure of a whole new type, which is proxy fusing too quickly.
Yeah, I would say so. That's a big fail right there, especially not to hit something moving that slow. It's like, that's embarrassing.
I mean, honestly, look at this. Bro, the missile came flying in at Mach 2 at a 70-mile-per-hour drone and still missed.
Wait here! Wait here! Иди сюда!
And this guy sounds like he's calling his dog.
Man, he said, Russia, we have to leave. It's like, shit, you don't have to now. They missed. Let's watch the next clip. Do they have another one of the failure? Oh, no, that's going in the refinery.
Yeah, I think that's after it escaped the Pantsir. I think it just flew on very peacefully straight to the target.
Oh my goodness. So, you know, folks, it's funny because a lot of people say, well, if the Russians really had air defense, they would be able to defend these sorts of facilities, and that would make all the difference. Well, we just saw that they actually did have a Pantsir finally at Nizhnekamsk, and it didn't make any difference at all. It literally missed it. Worse than the Russian air defense gunners with the machine guns missed the drones. Honestly, that's unbelievable to watch in real time, basically as we're on air. But another refinery has bit the dust as of right now at Nizhnekamsk. So to show y'all the location, this is the Nizhnekamsk refinery right here, and we believe that a lot of those videos are being filmed from the Nizhnekamsk city area, which is just to the northwest of the refinery complex, which is right down here. So another refinery has bit the dust while the Russians are already paralyzed, mind you all, of the lack of fuel throughout the entirety of the country, which we were actually just talking about a moment ago, coincidentally, while the Ukrainians blow up another refinery. And it's those kinds of refinery hits that are causing this sort of a crisis that's existing within Russia. To give you all a little bit more detail on the situation, according to a Russian military blogger who is living in Russia, so this gives us a very clear picture of what's actually going on, Ria Katyusha stated, first-hand information from members of the RIA Katyusha editorial team on the gasoline situation in Moscow and the surrounding region. The situation as of August 18th is worse than it was a couple of months ago. And also, Let me try and pause that right there. I didn't even realize that. But anyways, it is worse than a couple of months ago. Gasoline is in extreme short supply in the area of the Novorozhyanskoye Highway and the Moscow Ring Road and beyond. After 2 hours of searching and an hour-long queue, we managed to fill up with 95 grade gasoline. 92 was fine, but it was already sold out. After we got there, only 2 tons remained. Then at the checkout, they told us no more fuel trucks were expected until tomorrow. By 2 p.m., Rosneft and Lukoil were experiencing severe shortages. We witnessed 2 gas stations run out of gas. A fuel truck pulled up to drain the fuel, and they told us that payment would only be possible with fuel cards after it. Many people, angry and indignant, had to wait for 40 plus minutes before heading to other stations, but even there, things were extremely grim. We'll have to see what happens next, but for now, the second wave of fuel problems looks worse than the first. And really, we're only
Oh,
getting
yeah. It's like it's got to be worse than the first because Ukraine's continued hitting the refineries. Like the refineries are getting taken out in bigger and bigger numbers, as even since the last time they had the major bout of fuel outages. So it doesn't seem like bringing in fuel from India and all these different foreign countries. It doesn't appear to be working, which is exactly what we predicted. We said that was not a proper solution to the problem. That was simply a stopgap measure that Putin was desperately trying to do something to make it look like he's fixing the problem. And obviously that's not working. And now that Ukraine's taking out more refineries, this one's going to be much more permanent, in my opinion.
I would definitely agree. This one's going to be far more permanent. And you know what's funny, Matthew, is that this actually enters exactly that ye old Ponzi scheme sort of analysis that we had a while ago of if you try and import gas, there's only certain places you can import it, like St. Petersburg, and then you basically create a Ponzi scheme of one fuel truck moves to the next gas station down the road to refuel that gas station, so that way you can refuel more trucks traveling deeper and so on and so on. So basically all the fuel is just being consumed to keep the fuel trucks moving and refueling everyone from their distribution node, which would probably be in St. Petersburg. So it didn't work out. Didn't pan out at all, just like we said it wasn't going to, and clearly it didn't. So we are seeing that as a result of this, the Russians are beginning to panic. And to put this into a little bit of a brief explanation of how bad this is in Moscow, during the first fuel crisis, the fuel limit per purchase per day was around 100 liters of fuel inside of Moscow. Right now, most gas stations have just bumped that all the way down to 40 and 50 liters. So that should be giving you an idea of how bad the fuel shortage really is, because we also understand that Moscow is one of the areas least affected by fuel shortages within the country. Not only that, but if we work off of the fuel map that we had, I believe yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, which I believe we may have actually here. Let's see here. This is it. This is the illustration that we have from a few days ago. This is the current map as it stood 2 to 3 days ago, so about 72 hours ago, of the fuel situation in Russia. Every single oblast and every single semi-autonomous region, except for Chechnya, which had no data, and also Chikota, which is quite literally in the middle of nowhere, so there's absolutely no data on it. Every single one of them either had partial fuel restrictions or there was a complete lack of fuel in most of the oblasts. Notice that a lot of them, interestingly enough, in the southern military district, were apparently running severely low and had absolutely no fuel to speak of. That's something that's particularly interesting because considering that the Russian Federation heavily uses as a standard civilian logistics lines to be able to operate their armed forces, this means that civilian truckers supplying the Russian army are not really able to get any fuel within the southern military district, which is where they have to go to be able to drop off their supplies for the Russian army to keep operating on the field in Ukraine. So we do understand that this is not only bringing the Russian Federation's economy and also industries to a halt for the larger part due to the fuel crisis that is now even worsening, we also understand this may be having an impact on the logistical situation for the Russian armed forces at the front line currently. It looks like a lot of people are also starting to hear that at the moment there appears to be some very significant considerations being made that the Russian Federation might not really have a way to fix this, and there might not really be any sort of a workaround or a loophole they might be able to work on, like trying to get gasoline from India or trying to import it from nearby countries. The simple answer is, folks, is that it's just far too expensive to be able to import those sorts of refined fuels into the country, and not only that, it is extremely complicated to be able to distribute it inside of Russia if they even get the fuel outside of the prohibitive costs, which is starting to lead people into a singular question. What is Putin going to do now? And Matthew, what are people thinking about that? And what are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so now that we're seeing that the second round of fuel crises that we're seeing right now, we're going over on the stream, is apparently worsening and getting way worse than the first round of strikes that we saw, and also the first crisis. And despite the fact that they're trying to import fuel from India, that is not working, which, by the way, we predicted was not going to work. So, what will Putin likely do now? And it looks like the audience is pretty much split on the matter all over the place, actually. About 34% of the audience said he will do nothing. He's basically out of options. While another 34% said he'll escalate on NATO very quickly to distract from the issue, and 27% said he'll get more external fuel help from India or maybe another foreign country that might be able to supply refined fuel products like gasoline and diesel. And I would say that the external fuel imports from countries like India, that is simply not going to work. There's no physical way to import that much fuel without a pipeline to import the fuel. There's simply no way to do it. So it's simply physically impossible for them to get more external help. So that's a dead end. Now, I will say this. He could escalate on NATO. That is definitely something that he could do. And it looks like the intelligence is stacking up to show that he is planning or at least thinking strongly about doing something like that. And that's why we're seeing Kaliningrad still getting circled even today by NATO aircraft. It's still getting surveilled and encircled by these NATO recon aircraft. So I'm kind of leaning toward the idea that Putin's really not the sit back and wait type of person. He's more of the sort of like rash, kind of like take action type. I would say he might escalate on NATO pretty quickly because as this fuel crisis gets worse, it's going to affect logistics. It's going to affect the fuel for the civilians. It's going to affect literally everything and cause a cascade in the Russian economy. And he can't afford that right now. So I'm with the 35%. I think he will escalate. But Enforcer, what say you?
I think I'm also with the 35%. This is most likely going to leave him with only the choice of escalation. We do understand that escalation was chosen as a result by the two main Axis powers of World War II, Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan, when they started to see that their fuel lines specifically were beginning to shrink, along with other key necessities or goods that were also starting to disappear as well. Particularly in Germany, that would be the matter of food, which Germany partly produced enough food for its population at the time during the war. The fact that the Russian Federation is running into an extremely grim situation where they are pretty much running out of fuel, so they have to find some way to get the fuel or to end everything to where they can start stabilizing their supply lines to get fuel from the outside world or repair their refineries to where they can actually produce the fuel. Those are problems that they have to fix immediately. Otherwise, the country is going to collapse under this sort of a strain. And a lot of people are going to say, oh, well, it's just one industry. It's just gas. That's no big deal. Just suck it up and spend more at the pump. Kind of like the U.S. government's currently saying to all of us. But the problem with that is that does not actually work. People simply cannot suck it up and just produce more money to buy more gas. That doesn't really work, especially when we're talking about companies that rely on making a profit to be able to stay in operation, i.e. the rail transportation industries and the truck transportation industries as well, which are as important in Russia as they are in the rest of the world. If diesel prices rise, which they have definitely risen to extreme amounts inside of Russia, if the fuel is even available, which is a whole other factor, but they have to spend an exorbitant amount to keep anything running because the diesel costs a great deal. There may be laws in Russia that also force them to sell cargo rates per ton at a set rate, meaning that these rising prices are not allowed to be met by rising costs per rate per ton. It might just be that they're getting screwed over and they're starting to lose money and they're hemorrhaging money. Or it could also be that customers of these shipping companies are not willing to pay increased rates and therefore they're canceling contracts because they can't afford it, and then these transportation companies are going out of business. If transportation halts, the entire economy halts with it. And with that also halts military logistics as well. That also halts any economic activity, which reduces the tax base that the Russian government is able to work off of or generally feed off of, which then decreases the amount of money that they have, even in the midst of increased spending, which creates an even larger deficit, which puts the banks in a more dangerous position and possibly in the state of collapse. And you can see where it becomes a butterfly effect, where a lack of fuel can end up literally bringing down the entire system of Russia as it stands. That can happen in really any single nation in the world, and it's definitely happening in Russia right now. When countries are faced with an extreme extreme like this, they may start to escalate. And we do understand that inside of Japan, when the U.S. declared the embargo in 1940, it was decided quite clearly that they would have to conduct an offensive action against the United States, secure the oil-rich territories of Southeast Asia, and hope that at some point the U.S. would eventually surrender or agree to some sort of terms with the Imperial Japanese that would begin the flow of American oil back to Japan. None of that ever turned out to actually happen, but that was their hope, and that might be Putin's hope at this point, considering that he's basically against the wall and that has absolutely nowhere to go. A place that I like the Russians to be in, but it is always a dangerous place to put them in. But moving us
Yeah,
on.
and not to mention too the petroleum companies, if they're not selling gasoline because they simply aren't able to refine it because their refineries are getting taken out, they're getting hit in like three different ways. Their refineries are first of all taking huge hits, and they have to pay for those repairs. That's a huge financial hit right there because those repairs are very costly, especially when Ukraine hits a main refining stack or something right in the middle of the refinery. That's a very expensive repair, and they're having to do that every single month. So that's a loss on the books right there at multiple refineries for these companies. Then they have an export ban. They can't export and sell their fuel outside of Russia because Putin has banned that. They can't do that right now, so they can't make money outside of Russia. And number three, when they finally do get some fuel refined, they're barely able to sell any of it because they barely have any to sell. So it's like those companies. I don't even know how those companies are going to last. That's kind of like what we're saying about every company inside of Russia right now. We're saying that about Wildberries. We're saying that about the petroleum companies. I mean, they are just all in a foul shape, like tremendously bad.
I would agree. And also, I saw MD Stevens say that's stupid thinking, talking about how the Russians might make a decision like that. It is stupid thinking. But are the Russians unfamiliar with stupid thinking? And the answer is no. They are quite familiar with thinking stupidly. I mean, invading Ukraine was an absolutely stupid decision with the kind of international backlash that was clearly going to follow, and the fact that the Russian military certainly was not prepared or qualified to be able to conduct a full-scale conventional invasion of a country, and they still clearly aren't. That was a stupid decision in and of itself. And funnily enough, folks, Matthew believed back in 2021, before the war started, that the Russians were truly going to invade Ukraine. I was the one arguing with Matthew before the show even started. I said, they're never going to invade Ukraine. I said, that's absolutely stupid thinking of them. They're going to get sanctioned into hell. They're going to end up getting ground down to a nub because they really don't have a military that's worth any salt except for on paper. They completely suck. There's no way that they could do that and succeed at it and win. And then they invaded them and they're still losing 4.5 years later. So that part of my analysis was correct. But the part about them not starting the war because it was stupid was wrong. They made a stupid decision and they're still living with the consequences. So it's not out of the question to believe that now that this stupid country is desperate and considering that they think and act in a stupid way, that they could try and escalate even farther, thinking that might dig them out of the hole that they just dug. The reality is, in all honesty, is that the smartest way for Russia to be able to get out of the hole that it's dug is to end the conflict generally at any cost at this point, because strategically it's not like Russia's going to get screwed either way. If they give back all the occupied territories to Ukraine, the Black Sea Fleet doesn't exist anyway for Sevastopol to be useful, so that's completely lost its value. If they give all of that back and Putin is ousted, the Russian Federation will at least see that most, if not all, of the sanctions against it are lifted, which will allow for them to be able to get foreign lending from, say, Chinese banks, and that would be able to help them to slowly rebuild and repair all of the damage that they've sustained and slowly turn their economy around before it's too late. That would be the smart option.
I don't think so. I don't think that's really an option for Russia, really, because like we've gone over before, they're in a war economy right now. Most of their income is coming from the war, which is like a dog chasing its tail, because the war is what's destroying Russia, but it's also the only thing keeping Russia afloat, because weapons manufacturing and all these other different industries that supply the war, that's their only industry right now that's making any cash inside the country and also employing people to a large degree. Other industries are struggling and they're dying off. And also, I would say that China's already giving Russia lending. They have to be. There's no way that Russia could simply survive this right now with all these different companies experiencing the worst financial difficulties possible that could even exist in a country. There's no way they're enduring that without some sort of external help. So I think China's already giving it to them, most likely.
Probably to some degree. Probably not like whole on support because that would be too easy to track it with a paper trail, and a whole bunch of countries would be crying foul about it, including Ukraine, because I'm sure the Ukrainians would love to know if that was going on, so that way they could say the Chinese are sending humongous amounts of lending. So they're probably doing it at a small level. But a country, well, I mean, a country like Russia can survive quite significant amounts of economic punishment because Germany, through the First and Second World War, got the people basically eating like turnips every day for every meal, and basically having absolutely nothing left, not even clothes left to buy at the stores, and they'd still hang on for about a year or a year and a half after that set in. So, saying that a country at this point couldn't survive entirely on their own, historically, that wouldn't be the case. Like, usually they can, to a degree, a little bit longer than some people would expect.
You got to remember, though, that China is an absolute master at disguising weapon shipments and also financial aid. They're masters at it. I would argue they're better at it than Iran. There's several ways that China could be getting funds to Russia very covertly. It could be through, for example, cryptocurrency. It could be through that. I mean, that's something that Iran does very heavily. That's one of the main ways that Iran funds their economy and keeps it afloat now that they're cut off from the global financial system. I think China does the same thing. Also, when China wants to send weapons to Russia, they simply send it to North Korea, and then for North Korea to send it to Russia, they use a proxy to do it. Also, they could set up shell companies, all kinds of stuff like that. And China's that they're not unfamiliar with that whatsoever. They know how to do that kind of stuff. So I think that they're probably sending a hell of a lot of support. It's just hard to track. And if the U.S. government knows about it, they're not going to come out and say that either, because that would obviously put huge public pressure to crack down on China, which I don't think the current leadership's ready to do that. I think they're trying to foster a good relationship with China, sort of in a very hopeless kind of mindset. So I think they personally are.
Well, I mean, if they were, I think the Ukrainians would say something about it because it's not just U.S. intelligence that's at work. We know that the Ukrainians would most likely try and get that information out of the Russian government if it was available somewhere, and they would release it to the public. Because, I mean, it was the Ukrainians that broke the story that the Chinese were producing drones in Shenzhen to then ship into Russia, and we know that they are supporting them in that way. But if the Chinese were giving them such tremendous financial support, they were basically floating the entire country, there would have to be such a large and voluminous paper trail to prove that the Ukrainians most likely would have found that by now and have also reported that publicly.
I don't think Ukraine has quite the network that we have when it comes to surveilling China. I don't think they have that. Ukraine's very good at surveilling their region, like Russia and stuff like that. But I don't think they have a very strong network in China. They probably have some ways to get information out of China, but they mainly probably rely on the United States for that information. And the United States probably doesn't share that very heavily, I'd imagine, because it's not really Ukraine's purview to get that information. So I don't think Ukraine would really be able to blow the whistle because they probably don't know.
Well, they don't really have to know about China because you're saying that China's giving money to Russia. So they don't need to know if the Chinese are giving money to Russia. They just need to know if Russia is receiving money from China. So if they have an intelligence sphere in Russia, which they certainly do because they're whacking Russian generals every other day, in bombings at their apartment blocks and whatnot, and also getting classified information out of the Russian government regularly, which we've covered on air. So we do know that they have a extensive intelligence apparatus, or at least moles or rats in the Russian government. If there was some sort of paperwork or proof to show that the Chinese were providing tremendous sums of money in support to the Russians, the Ukrainians would have to have that by now because there would be a paper trail in Russia to confirm that. It would be in the financial institutions, the Russian central government to some degree, the Russian states institutions that oversee the banks. It would be somewhere in there, and they haven't really found that yet.
Mm.
And if they have found it, it must be small enough that they're not willing to make a mention of it.
I don't think they would ever know because if China was sending the money, they'd be sending it directly to Russian financial institutions, and it would come in as investments or through companies that look completely legitimate for the most part. So unless Ukraine was in the books of the Russian banks, they would have no way of knowing where that money was coming from, and that's probably not something that they would widely talk about or publicize either, because the whole point's to be covert. So. I mean, I would strongly doubt that Ukraine would have the ability to even know that. The U.S. might know it because we're deeply in China and we know all about what they're doing and most of their techniques, I'd imagine. But I don't think Ukraine would know that. Their capabilities are nowhere close to what our capabilities are for intelligence.
Well, let me ask you this then, because if we're saying that China is really super sneaky and they know everything and they are able to do everything, and the U.S. just doesn't want to say it, why in the world would Klepot come out as the Russian state bank financial advisor, having known everything that's going on in the Russian state bank just a few days ago, and say that they're basically cooked and there's no way for them to keep going because the books have been cooked to the extreme and there's no way to further cook them? If there was money coming in from somewhere like that to that amount where they could just float the Russians indefinitely, why in the world would the chief advisor of the Russian state bank come out and say that Russia is doomed and pay for that statement with his own position?
They could be worried that China's going to cut the support eventually, because I'm sure that China's willing to help, but they're probably not willing to help indefinitely. That would be my guess, personally.
Maybe so. We'll have to see. But me personally, I think that the support's either very small monetarily or non-existent for the large part. My personal thing. Military support, though, for sure. We know that they're producing drones for the Russians, but outside of that, I don't really know if the support is as grand as we would think it is, because the Chinese also don't seem to be that cozy with the Russians, at least to me. But anyways, moving us on from that and on into the rest of the news that we also have been able to hear that the Ukrainians are conducting, which we kind of covered in the breaking news a moment earlier, a major drone attack against the Russian Federation currently. These are the current drone attack vectors as we were able to see them just a little while ago when the drone attack began, and we were able to see that there were significant attack vectors once again traveling into southern Russia, central Russia towards the Moscow area, the occupied territories, and the Russian Don region, and also Crimea. We were able to see that some of these attacks have already resulted in some very interesting results. In the area of Novomoskovsk, it appears that anti-aircraft fire, or more so machine gun-based anti-aircraft fire, was trying to shoot down some of these drones once they made it into the air defense perimeter. Moving us on from that clip and on to our next one in the Ryazan area, we also were able to hear that the fuel crisis once again is reaching a fever pitch, and we were able to see videos showing the fuel queues on some of the highways around the Moscow area and within western Russia. But we're not really going to show those clips because, to be entirely honest with y'all, it's kind of a bit of a redundant topic. We've already covered it greatly, and also a fuel line is a fuel line. When people are sitting on the side of the road parked for 2 miles straight, and we've shown y'all that dozens of times, it's a little bit redundant. But moving us on from that, and into the Ingles area, we've also been able to hear that the Russian Federation was preparing for, and we'll be getting into this here very soon, a large-scale missile and drone attack against the state of Ukraine tonight, which has been underway for some time, and we have been able to report that there has been significant damage in Kyiv, Kryvyi Rih, and Zhytomyr that we were able to confirm on video, unfortunately, as a result of those attacks. Meanwhile, further north and in the area of Chebok-Sary, a Ukrainian drone actually impacted a substation near to the Veneer Progress plant inside of Chebok-Sary, which is involved in producing semiconductors and raw electrical components or electronic components for productions in weapon systems, and the substation burned quite nicely today. I mean, it was quite a fire.
Oh, wow. A big one.
Boy.
It's a very quiet fire. It's a very calm one.
Man, it's just a gentle fire, like knocking out the whole factory, but a gentle fire. Also, additionally, in the Ufa area in Bashkortostan, we were able to see that a smaller wildberries hub had been hit in the area of the town of Chishmy, which is just to the southwest by about 15 miles of the city of Ufa, which is the seat of the Bashkortostan Oblast. Following the impact, a large-scale fire broke out, which destroyed part of the warehouse facilities. While the roof did not cave in, and we also see that the walls are still standing as well, the roof has been thoroughly burned from the fire that was raging inside of the facility, and we also were able to see some additional hits over here further to the right as well. Also to note, there is actually 6 separate hits on the roof that we can count here, showing that 6 separate drones hit this wildberries facility within Bashkortostan and apparently have caused tremendous damage to the interior of the structure. In Ufa, we also saw the Ukrainian drone attack had also hit the refinery once more here in this clip, and the damage was serious.
Oh.
Мишу, дом.
Yes, it's a problem.
Походу. Ёб твою мать.
Moving us on
They
from
always
that,
say the exact same thing. The man, or something like that.
man, you know, every single dude does it like this, man. Up to your mind! It's a sucker blade! And then every woman goes, like something like that. It's like the same thing, like every single time. It's like an NPC reaction, but we were able to see a fire here, right at the AVT-6 condenser. And lastly, we also were able to see as well a little bit more of the damage. Oh, that's bad right there. That is right
That's
on.
horrendous.
terrible, honestly, atrocious, a travesty. Apparently, the drone fell just a few meters short of the AVT-6 unit, and the pipeline overpass caught fire. We do believe that the AVT-6 also suffered some damage from the resulting fire, and it does look like the Russians will once again be going with a little less fuel after the hit once again landed on the Uva refinery in Bashkortostan. So, moving us on out of all of this drone attack news that we were able to get in the Russian Federation, it's now time for us, folks, to start moving on down and into the middle of the East. Boy, howdy, folks. Oh man, I know that many of y'all are looking forward to this one. And you know, we've got quite a lot of news to cover. Is it good? Not really, but is it news? And that is the answer, or more so the question. And the answer to that is absolutely it is news. We have been able to hear that over the course of this day, the Strait of Hormuz situation has continued to transpire between the United States of America and the Islamic Republic of Iran. As of today, the IRGC is continuing to conduct militant and hostile actions against Gulf states as the UAE just suspended all trade with the Iranian regime in a statement as follows. The director of the Strategic Communications Department of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Afra al-Hameli, rejected all allegations regarding the status of the economic relationship between the United Arab Emirates and the Islamic Republic of Iran. Al-Hameli reiterated the UAE's steadfast commitment to dialogue, cooperation, and regional integration as essential means of advancing peace, stability, and prosperity in the region. Al-Hameli underscored that in light of regional escalations that undermine regional and international peace and security, all trade, commercial exchanges, and financial transactions with Iran have been halted until further notice. Al-Hameli emphasized that the UAE remains firmly committed to safeguarding the integrity of the international financial system, in line with the international law and the highest global standards. While that was going on, we also were able to hear that Iran seized a UAE oil tanker in the Strait of Hormuz today and is diverting it to an Iranian port, according to the IRGC-linked Fars news agency. After the UAE cut all trade with Tehran, Iran's terror regime is once again using piracy and intimidation to hold the Gulf hostage. While all of that's going on, the Iranians are making it clear that their ambitions with the Strait of Hormuz are going to be quite voluminous, as an Iranian member of parliament today said that 40% of the revenue from the Strait of Hormuz would go to strengthening the armed forces and military infrastructure of the country, while 60% would go to public welfare. He said the plan would help Iran to use the Strait's potential for national interests. Now, mind you all, we've done the approximations on how much money the Iranians would be making off of charging tolls on the Strait of Hormuz, and I believe our last number was somewhere close to $400 billion a year. So 40% of that, which we'll just round it up to 50-50, about $150 billion of that is going to go into their military spending budget, meaning that they will actually have more military spending than the Russian Federation did before the war in Ukraine, or they'll have half of the military spending that China has right now. Just from this. Not only including the military spending that they are currently still spending right now before they charge fees on the Strait. So it does appear quite clear that the Iranians are going to be ramping up the military quite a great deal because they're going to have a whole bunch of extra money to do it with to buy those sweet, sweet Chinese weapons. Because nothing ever says, folks, the art of the deal like Iran being equipped entirely and sponsored largely by the People's Republic of China. While all of that's going on inside of the Strait of Hormuz and the Iranians are dreaming of brighter futures with even more missiles and bombs, the U.S. is making every single statement under the sun. And I kid you not, we're about to go through every single different statement that you can make that contradicts every other statement that was made. We have four of them. All of these happened within just the past 24 hours. Just the past 24 hours. 4 different statements, each one contradictory. Starting with our first statement, we were able to hear that the president made the following statement this morning. No one has given the Islamic Republic of Iran a greater opportunity to make a deal than me. Great misfortune. Tragically for them, they have failed to take it. Therefore, today, I'm announcing the most crushing operation ever taken against any country. I doubt that. This will be economic warfare and isolation on an unprecedented scale. Blah, 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 their shit's gone. Today, I'm announcing that any country that allows its financial institutions, businesses, airports, or government entities to provide any type of lifeline to Iran will face tremendous economic consequences. Oil smuggling, swap lines, cash transfers, exchange houses, ship registries, front companies, it all needs to stop Now, you know who you are. This will be an economic D-Day, and we need all the allies to stand with the United States of America to isolate and defeat the Iranian threat. These maniacs are on the ropes, and these historic measures will cripple them in their ability to project terror worldwide. Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Please answer the survey below.
Oh man. There's a huge problem with the statement right there. It's like if we already know who the people are that are aiding Iran and they've been aiding them throughout the war, it's like what makes him think that putting out a statement saying that he's going to do X, Y, and Z is going to make them change their mind? It hasn't made them change their mind yet. So why is it suddenly going to change their mind now? It obviously won't. So, it's like we all know who it is. It's China. And he's not going to do anything against China. Like, I don't buy that for a second.
Man, the most crushing economic operation ever taken against any country. It's like, man,
What
I
are they
really,
now?
I
It's like
really,
it's not like Iran. It's not like Iran's connected to the global economic system right now. I mean, they're isolated at unprecedented scale right now.
man, I really love the stupid wordage though. It's like, man, I guess Nazi Germany was never really like blockaded or anything, or Imperial Japan, or I don't know, the Soviet Union, or any other country in history. It's like, no, this one's going to be the worst. It tops all of them. It's like total war in World War II. Psh, don't worry, the president's got this taken care of. He's going to do something even worse, which is probably going to be sitting around doing absolutely nothing for a couple of weeks and then making some more stupid statements over the next several days, I would assume. But I mean, what really, man, like honestly, like you were saying, what are we really going to do? Like, it's like we've already been sanctioning
Nothing.
them into oblivion the whole time for 50 years. What new could be done?
There's nothing new to be done whatsoever. There's none. And at this point, this is the problem with making statements like this. If you're going to do something, just do the damn thing and then report on the results after you're done with it. Don't say, "Oh, I'm about to do this. Everybody better get out of the way." It's this has been done so many times. The same strategy of these empty threats. It's like nobody's going to take this seriously. It's like they said they were going to take out a power plant every single time a ship was attacked in the Strait of Hormuz. That never happened. It's like there's been so many different things that have been said was going to be done, and none of it really got done. So it's like, do you really think that China's going to look at this and be like, "Oh my goodness, the U.S. is getting mad. No more Mr. Nice Guy"? It's like they're going to look at this and think, yeah, they probably won't even read this.
Man, man, I'm not gonna lie, man. I feel like at this point these statements are written like somebody who rolls up into town with a little cart filled with vials of oils from snakes, and they just go, "Come around, everyone. Make sure to stick around. Gather your family here. Big news coming. Big news. This will fix your bones." That's right, folks. It's gonna fix your bones. Like, it's the same thing over and over. It's basically snake oil at this point.
Also, it said we need all of our allies to stand with the United States of America to isolate and defeat the Iranian threat. Well, I mean, China's not an ally. So, I mean, the people he's talking to are the enemies of the United States. That's the people he's aiming the statement at. They're the ones doing the smuggling, the swap lines, the cash transfers, and all this other stuff he's talking about. It's China and all of our adversaries. They're the ones aiding and abetting Iran. It's not Europe. I mean, Europe's not trying to help Iran win. They just don't want to get involved. They're not actually actively helping Iran, though. So it's like, to say we need our allies, like China's not our ally, so it's like it's confusing.
Also, I saw someone say it's not aimed at China. Well, that's the problem. It's aimed at EU countries. The EU has nothing to do with Iran. Like, literally nothing. Like, nobody has anything to do with Iran in Europe. Like, there's no trade that goes to Iran from Europe. There's no trade from Iran to Europe. There's nothing going on there. So directing it at our allies to have absolutely no impact on Iran is kind of silly, to be entirely honest. It's like, what is that going to do? Nothing, basically. So it's like, why in the hell not go for the main one, the big prize, the Chinese? It's like they're the ones who are generally helping them out, and the Russians. But apparently we're once again putting it on our allies. And also, I got to say, it's kind of funny that we're asking our allies to stand with the United States when the United States can't hardly ever stand with any of our allies. I mean, we just literally screwed over and pulled the rug right out from South Korea. We also did the same thing to Europe, sending them the questionnaire going, if you do not agree with the president's personal opinions on everything at a national level, we're withdrawing all of our forces out of Europe. Like, we're going around not standing with a soul. So why in the world would we expect that they are going to stand with us? Really one-way street kind of an idea. It's not going to work.
Also, by the way, the stuff he's naming right here, oil smuggling, swap lines, cash transfers, exchange houses, ship registries, and front companies, that's the exact same methods I was talking that China's probably using with Russia. The same methods they're using with Iran, too. That's probably the exact same playbook that I was actually mentioning earlier that China's doing to, get funds into Iran and get all kinds of financial aid into the country. But he failed to mention cryptocurrency, though. I did notice that. He didn't really mention that fact in here. I mean, that's a heavy way that Iran funds their whole operation is through crypto that's routed through several different wallets.
Man, oh man, they can't touch that though. Like we can't get into why, but no hands off. But moving us on from that, we also were able to get a news statement. Iran has limited visibility of maritime traffic in the Strait of Hormuz's southern channel, with U.S. officials saying its surveillance now relies on a small number of restored radars and spotters operating from IRGC fast boats. That sounds amazing, It's the problem here is though, folks, like the small problem that we have here is that if they're relying entirely on spotters from IRGC fast boats, right? Nobody's blowing them up. So they can just go right down there and spot all day with a little handheld radio in a skiff, and just go, this is Seppa Navy, we got one, blow it. And then they blow up a ship. It's like nobody's blowing up the Iranian fast attack boat, so even if that's true, doesn't matter. And also the Strait of Hormuz is quite small. I mean, it's only 30 miles across, so it's not really like, oh, they only have one radar so they can't see the whole strait. It's like one small low-end radar from 60 years ago could cover the entire strait easily as a surface search radar. No problems at all. So this statement is largely just trying to mitigate the problem and go, oh, well, the strait's fine, it's completely open, when in reality it's absolutely not. I mean, this statement's basically saying what we already would generally know, and even with those provisions in mind, passage through the strait is still incredibly dangerous, if not fatal, like we saw yesterday with the two vessels that got hit transiting through the strait. If they can't see them, they wouldn't get hit, and they both got hit, and they were both traveling through the southern corridor. So it doesn't really seem like that's panning out. The third statement of the day was that the president said the deal with Iran did not turn out to be what they said.
Oh, shit.
Man. And other facts and small trivia points that you may not know.
Can we get some news here? I mean, I thought we were a news channel. What's going on here? This is like Captain Obvious right here.
Man, oh man, but he had to include that word deal. That's man, it had to include it. Also, lastly, we were then able to hear from the president. I won't play the post because I don't want to hear all the bloviating, but the president then said a lot of pipelines are being built. I think the Hormuz Strait's not going to be as important as it was in the past. So we were able to hear, folks, 4 different statements. We're going to conduct economic D-Day on Iran to open the strait. The strait is pretty much completely passable as it is. There's basically no defenses, no offensive capabilities of the Iranians whatsoever, so you basically go through and it's totally fine because it's an important waterway and traffic has to continue. The deal isn't really that great, so, it's kind of we're getting screwed. And then it's not even an important waterway anymore. So we basically got 4 different contradictory statements, completely contradicting each other entirely in 24 hours. So we're averaging 1 contradictory statement every 6 hours now. It used to be every other day or every day. And now we've gotten to 1 contradictory statement every 6 hours. So we're running records here, folks. I mean, the story from the U.S. government is quite literally changing on the strait 6 hours at a time now.
Now I understand why it's called the art of the deal. Because, sometimes you go to an art gallery and you look at the stuff on the wall and you're like, what the hell is this even on the wall? Like, is this art? I mean, that's the point. Like, it's sometimes abstract. Sometimes you don't understand it. They didn't say it was the success of the deal. They said it was the art of the deal, which isn't always completely, vividly clear all the time. So I guess maybe that's why they call it that.
Man, I think this president's idea of art is like a banana on a wall with duct tape. I think that's the idea of art because it sure as hell is not looking good. Like it's looking pointless and dumb. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous at this point. And also, while all of that's going on, the Iranians are getting quite mouthy, by the way, folks, because they're understanding at this point. They basically control the strait, and the U.S. doesn't look like it's ever going to really do anything about it, and they also know that the economic sanctions issue isn't really going to be that big of a one. Yeah, I'll hurt them maybe a little, like maybe they won't be able to import pet hamsters and pet guinea pigs for a little bit, which will be a small problem. But the Iranians are largely realizing that war is going to be coming back around. And from what we were able to hear, the Iranians put out this statement today to all of the Gulf states. This was a statement by Major General Ali Abdullahi, who is the chief of staff of the Iranian Armed Forces. And the statement reads as follows. This, by the way, was translated from its original statement in, I believe it was Arabic or Farsi, into English. That's why it looks like it's been transplanted onto the page. It has been. The countries on the southern shores of the Persian Gulf, which have issued various statements declaring that they will not allow the United States to use their territories against Iran, should know that nothing is hidden from our eyes. It seems unlikely that this number of military aircraft, especially refueling aircraft, would be stationed at regional bases without the knowledge of the host countries. We warn that any assistance or facilitation of the aggressive U.S. Army is tantamount to participation with U.S. military forces. And that was a statement made today. Once again, the Iranians are threatening the Gulf states, but they went a little step further. They went a little step extra. They now started to threaten the Europeans. As the Iranians are starting to see that a full-scale restart of the war is most likely going to be inevitable, because they're largely trying to force the U.S.'s hand to get back into a conflict, to try and drag us into basically knockdown, drag-out sort of a fight where they hope to continue to keep winning. And as a result of this, they're preparing to directly attack U.S. military targets across Europe as part of its escalation plan. As soon as Iran's 3 to 4 weeks ultimatum to meet all of its demands runs out and the president escalates, with Iran's IRGC having assessed strikes on U.S. bases in Bulgaria, Cyprus, and other locations, according to the Financial Times and 2 senior Iranian sources in Tehran. An Iranian senior official says that should the U.S. go too far, Iran will defend itself at any price, go beyond the region, and hit Europe too, and no limits will be placed on Iran's response, adding a very big mistake, such as hitting our infrastructure, could make the war go beyond the region and reach Europe. Targets include Bulgaria's Besmer Air Base in southeastern Europe and RAF Akrotiri and Dkilia in Cyprus. The officials directly reference Iran's attack last month on the U.S. base in Jordan, which killed 3 U.S. service members, as the most precise long-range attack Iran has carried out, demonstrating its capability to hit targets over greater distances. So it should know where it should stand in this war. Iran's IRGC is also separately examined attacking subsea fiber optic internet cables on the Strait of Hormuz in the event of any escalation, and as the deadline runs out, as many within Iran increasingly see a resumption of the war as a matter of when, not if. So the Iranians are getting ready to go all out when the conflict comes around again. And so it appears that a lot of people are talking in the chat about whether that's actually a real threat or not that the Iranians are issuing. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that? And what are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so in a real shocking move, Iran is now threatening to strike U.S. military targets in Europe if the escalation continues. So is it a serious threat, or is it simply Iran, running their mouth again? So it looks like 53% of the audience said, yes, this is a real threat, while 31% said, no, Iran really won't do that, and 12% said, I'm 50-50 on this one. And I would say, to me, it sounds like a real threat. Iran does have the ability to reach slightly into Europe a little bit with some of their larger ballistic missiles, the more long-range variants. They do have that capability in their arsenal. But whether or not they would actually do that, that's still up for debate. But I think it is a real threat, though. I mean, it's something to take seriously because Iran does have the capability. But it's to be seen, though, because, of course, the easier target for Iran is to simply start hitting the Gulf states again, which would be quite devastating to the region. And also, if they start striking into Europe and they hit a NATO country, that could actually force NATO to get dragged into the conflict, which would be even worse for Iran at that point, because I have a feeling that NATO probably would respond if that did happen. So I would say it's a real threat, but it's not anything to go too crazy about. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that it is a real threat. I would be with the 53%. The Iranians have proven in the past that they will conduct attacks on nations that we did not expect they would. They conducted attacks in Egypt, in Jordan, in Iraq, in Israel, also in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, the UAE, Oman, and also Yemen in some cases, with the Houthis largely operating as their indirect proxy throughout the entirety of the past 2 phases of the war. So it's not, and also, by the way, I forgot to mention that they conducted missile attacks which failed against the Incirlik air base inside of Turkey, which clearly shows that they are more than willing to attack or attempt an attack on NATO states, whether or not that might result in larger consequences. So I would say that I'm definitely with the 53%. It is quite truly a real threat, and I think that the Iranians may be acting on that here in the near future if the United States does begin to restart the conflict. Whether or not that's going to drag Europe in is a whole other question. Europe might not be willing to get dragged in, and honestly, folks, I mean, with the Europeans in a rock and a hard place, with the president saying, if your loyalties are questionable to me, I'm going to pull out all of our armed forces in Europe, and the Iranians threatening to blow up a lot of European countries if they house U.S. military forces, a lot of European countries might just decide to answer the little questionnaire truly, and let the U.S. forces leave so that way they don't get attacked by the Iranians, which then might leave us in a bit of a pickle. Once again, folks, the U.S. doesn't work entirely on its own in the world. It works off of its allies. And one day, folks, we're going to have a government that finally realizes that these days, that the only reason the U.S. looks like a giant is because we have a million friends around the world that are willing to let us be a giant. If a lot of them don't want us there, they're going to kick us out, and we're going to be stuck here in the North American continent with absolutely nowhere to go and no power projection capabilities like everybody else. So moving us on out of that bit of news and that little poll right there, we've also been able to hear that there has been some interesting military actions once again in southern Lebanon. The Israeli Air Force has conducted another airstrike today on the area of Mansoura, southern Lebanon, near Tyre, and roughly 10 kilometers from the Israeli border. So we do understand that those airstrikes are still continuing by the Israelis, and they are still continuing to hit Hezbollah forces left and right throughout southern Lebanon. So moving us on out of the Middle East, thank the Lord, folks, that's all the news we had from there. It's now time for us to move on over to East Asia and start making our way as usual around the world and back to the war in Ukraine. But before we get on into the Korean news today, because we have something interesting coming out of that, I do have to say humongous thanks to everybody who has been here watching over the course of the night. We've had 16.7 thousand people here at the peak tonight, and 59,000 people have watched this show in the first 1 hour and 9 minutes. We're always entirely honored and greatly appreciative to know that so many of y'all continue to watch this show and consider it to be your primary source of news. Because we try and keep this thing running each and every single day with the highest quality news, hopefully some decent jokes, and some good analysis to go along with it all to make sure to wrap this thing up into a nice little bow. And I hope that so far in this first hour we've done somewhat well as we move on into the second hour of news coverage and cover everything else that's been going on around the world. But before we get to all of that though, I do want to make sure that we take a brief moment to answer 3 questions from the chat and get to talk to all of y'all as a thanks and appreciation for y'all's time being here. So with that, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so jumping into our first 3 super chats and jumping right back to our big breaking news of the night. Our first one here is going to go to none other than Becca B51. And thank you very much, Becca, for the largest super chat so far tonight, which is a $50 support. And we do appreciate that very, very much. And Becca said, thanks for all yous do.
And thank you, Becca B, for supporting this channel and helping us to do all we do. We are only able to make this entire channel possible thanks to all of the amazing folks of the Leaf Spring Army and their incredible time watching this channel, and also the folks who go out of their way to support the channel, like you, Becca B. You are the person who made this possible tonight in your own way with the time you spent watching this show and the support that you've thrown in. It helps us to be able to keep our lights on behind the scenes and to pay those bills. They never stop, you know, every month, all the time, the rest of your life. And that helps us to be able to keep on air and keep doing this thing full time every single day. And we're greatly appreciative of you, Becca B, because you're helping us to be able to do everything that we do here on air to cover the news. So humongous thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat is going to go to JMO75. And thank you, JMO, as well, for the 20. And we do appreciate it. He said, new poll. We should send Reacher to A, Iran, B, White House, C, Pentagon, D, Moscow. Who the hell's Reacher? And what's he reaching for?
I don't really know. Like, man, like I pulled it up. Apparently, it's some guy called Alan Richson.
Some young guy.
Some young guy. Man, like I guess I don't really know what the show is about. Like. I never heard of this one. Apparently it's about a retired military officer that's arrested for a murder he didn't commit, and he finds himself in the middle of a deadly conspiracy theory full of dirty cops, shady businessmen, and scheming politicians. That's literally the show description. But I've never heard of that though. I never heard of that. But you know, maybe we ought to send him to Iran. I don't know. Because honestly, the White House and the Pentagon are completely hopeless. Like no help there.
Yeah. I don't know what's better. Is it better to send Reacher to go deal with the problem, or Grabber? It's like which one? Which one? And that's a horrible name, by the way. I don't know who came up with that name for a character, but that's like not a. I don't like the sound of that.
Man, next thing you know, you're gonna have Coppin and Feeler coming around.
Man, so these people sound like they're just like a charge waiting to happen.
Oh, man, we got we got the Z team. We've got Reacher, Grabber, Copper, and Feeler all in the same team. Oh my goodness. But still, a big thanks to your support. Double this channel to keep it running, JMO75. And I hope you were able to turn that into a pretty good joke. And we thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running as well. And with that, it is time for us to move on and into the final question of the segment. And then we're going to be getting on into the rest of the news for the night. So what do we got?
And this one's going to go to Little by Little More, who puts in a $20 support. And thank you very much, Little by Little, for that 20. They said, did you know in 97, Australia got 2 military Mi-24 and 2 military Mi-8 choppers, and they were repossessed from British mercenaries, Sandline International, when accidentally landing in Australia. And Australia government buried them in 2016 at the local dump.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. I never knew that, actually. You know, there's a lot of interesting things that happen in Australia. I think one of the most fascinating, though, was when one of your prime ministers went swimming at the beach and apparently got pulled out by a riptide and drowned, and nobody really cared. Like, that's probably one of the more interesting things about Australia, is that everyone in the country just went, whatever. And it's like, what? It's like your prime minister just died. But no one really cared all too much. Also, there was another time when another prime minister actually crapped himself at a McDonald's. Not making that up either. That's like a real documented thing that happened. But beyond that, though, I did not know that. You know what's interesting, though, is that the first Mi-24 that was ever successfully captured by Western forces, which I believe happened in Mali, or it was Niger. I'm not really sure, but it actually is in Birmingham, Alabama, if I'm not mistaken, at the Southern Museum of Flight. And let me see if I can go show you that Mi-24, because they have it all spruced up here in this little museum. And so let me go get the picture. Here it is. I think if I remember correctly, that was actually a Mali Mi-24 or a Nigerian or something along those lines, Mi-24, and they were able to successfully recover it with a Chinook, bring it back to the United States, and they were able to take it apart and figure out how the Mi-24 worked. If I'm not mistaken, I think this is that helicopter. Someone that we know in the chat, a great friend of the channel, I think either told me a story very close to that or it was that story, so make sure to corroborate if that's true or not. Let me know in the chat if it is. But still, the Hinds are interesting. They're quite old at this point, because they've been around since the late 70s, but they are really, really neat. Like, I actually think they're one of the cooler looking things that the Soviet Union ever made. One of the few things I would actually say looks good that came out of the Soviet Union. But still, a huge thanks to your support and helping this channel to keep on running. And also, a really cool fact about that from Australia, nonetheless. And so, a tremendous thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, it's time for us folks to move on back into the rest of the news that we have for the night. Oh boy, I hope y'all are ready. I got a kicker for y'all. So y'all remember when the president put out that statement that we were going to be reducing the number of drills that we were having with South Korea? Do y'all remember that? I'm sure y'all do. And then the exercise began, and the U.S. wasn't really involved in it all that much. We're there, but we're just not involved in the military exercises. Well, apparently, not only was that done to get back at South Korea for not helping us out with Iran, it was apparently done to try and gain fervor with North Korea to be able to possibly get a meeting with Kim Jong-un pulled off at some point later this year, possibly in Beijing from what we were hearing. The Korean Central News Agency, the KCNA, which is a part of the Propaganda and Agitation Department, put out a statement today that was paraphrased quite nicely by Unusual Whale. North Korea says a U.S. decision to scale back military exercises with South Korea doesn't change a thing.
Oh, so much for that good relationship.
Man, that's literally my reaction right there, man. Oh, no way.
Oh my.
Oh my. Man, it's like, who could have not seen that coming? It's like, man, it's like, isn't it a shame, Matthew? I thought they were great friends. It turns out that there is no such thing as great friends with national leaders. There's only temporary acquaintances, especially amongst these dictator types. And the North Koreans, folks, got exactly what they wanted out of the United States when they got it in the late 2010s, when this president was around in the last term that he had. And after that, they decided to completely shut themselves off from the outside world and become even more hostile. So clearly, meeting with them again would do absolutely nothing, and they got what they want. They don't want to meet with the United States again.
Yeah. And also, it's like, it's another misunderstanding of how the whole system works. It was okay for Kim Jong Un to meet with the president once. That was acceptable because it made it look like the U.S. was like coming to their knees to a certain degree, and also it was like a propaganda thing. But they can't chum up too heavily with the United States because then that messes up the entire reason their country exists, which is to try to destroy America and fight the evil Americans. So it messes up their whole propaganda narrative if they get too close with the United States. So they can't have the president showing up all the time like he's like moving in or something like that. It's going to mess up their whole society.
Yeah, man. Also, folks, the golden moment that the North Koreans got out of the first time that the president had anything to do with them, this one, is that when he crossed the Peace Village demarcation line, he actually met a whole bunch of North Korean generals that were there at the Peace Village. Let me go find the Peace Village for y'all really quickly to set the scene. I'm sure all of y'all have seen Panmunjom before. It's just that I want to find it here really quickly. It's right on the border. It's very easy to spot. And I didn't spot it. So where the hell is it, man? Like, where is this thing? Wait a minute, is it? No, it's on the border. I know it's on the border because it literally has the demarcation line in it. Where the hell is it? Is it over here? Oh, it's somewhere over here. Let's see here. Ah, here we are. So when he crossed across the border here, so he went from the North Korean side of the House of Freedom to the Panmun Pavilion. When he went over there was a whole bunch of North Korean generals in the bottom of the building. And he went in there and he started shaking hands with them. And North Korean media was filming. And for some stupid reason, he saluted a North Korean general, like he did the actual hand salute, bringing, his hand to his eye, in the form of military salute. And the North Korean media ran with that so much. They were like, the president is saluting a general of the Korean People's Army, therefore he is a subordinate of the general, and he even realizes the grandness of the Korean People's Army and how weak and inferior America is and he himself to the greatness of our grand leader Kim Jong-un. Literally, they just spun that crap and went with it for months. It was probably one of the biggest embarrassments that we could get because we basically handed them ammo to use on Korean state television to make it look like the president actually had some sort of unbelievable respect for the KPA, which was absolutely ridiculous. I've found it quite embarrassing, but that was really the only thing they got out of it. And once they got that out of them, they didn't want anything to do with the U.S. or anyone else again. They had their little warming up moment, as many of y'all remember, where they had some cross-border relations with the South Koreans temporarily, and then right after that, Kim Jong-un's batshit crazy sister came out of the woodworks, and they both started to work together to become as hostile as possible against the West, and there's probably more of a hostile position they're taking in foreign policy now than they have since the 1960s. So there was really no reason that North Korea would want to have a meeting with us, really. But anyways, moving us on out of North Korea, we've also been able to hear that within the United States of America today, there was another little development. According to the FBI, the NSA, the Department of Energy, and the Environmental Protection Agency, and the CISA, they are warning that unidentified hackers are targeting the Siemens S7 series across multiple critical infrastructure sectors, including manufacturing, energy, water and wastewater, chemical, food, and agricultural facilities. Allegedly. So we do understand that there is apparently, allegedly, some hackers that are out there trying to work hard and getting into our critical infrastructure systems. Hopefully they don't. Moving us on from that, and on out of that little bit of news, it's now time for us to move on out of the United States of America and back towards Europe. In Europe today, it's been quite a busy day. NATO has conducted another major air action near to the Kaliningrad region, as a significant number of AWACS and aerial tankers once again were put up into the air and were operating largely in orbits throughout Germany and Poland, while one of the command aircraft, MF-15, which was actually a Airbus A330, correction there, was actually flying even further north of Kaliningrad. This is another large-scale air action or air operation that has once again been conducted 2 days in a row by NATO air forces, and we're not entirely sure why these are being conducted. We believe that they are intimidation actions against the Russian Federation to show that NATO air forces are ready and alert for immediate actions against the Russian Federation if necessary in the outbreak of war, or it could also be the fact that NATO forces are trying to prepare for a possible attack from the Russian Federation, as they may have received some form of intelligence that is leading to believe that armed action against the Russians may be imminent, and they must keep aircraft in the air for some form of a defensive line or a defensive network to start with once those attacks commence. We're still not entirely sure what the these really are, but we are keeping an eye on them. While we are not sure about that, Poland is quite sure about their situation, according to statements that were made today, as Russia's threat of consequences against Britain and a stark warning from a senior Polish defense official are intensifying concerns that the Russians could seek to test NATO directly as the war in Ukraine continues. Polish Deputy Minister Cezary Tomzik said that his country is actively preparing for the possibility of conflict, telling Super Express in an interview published August 17th, "We are preparing for war, hoping that it never happens." The Polish embassy in Washington told Fox News Digital that Warsaw's accelerated defense preparations are intended to deter potential aggression rather than signaling that conflict is inevitable. In short, the Polish are largely under the understanding that the Russian Federation may start a war in the future, but they are not going to conduct any offensive or preemptive actions against Russia to counter that. Instead, they are going to work on preparing their armed forces and their nation for a wartime economy and a wartime situation, mostly with the enactment of emergency powers, and to prepare all of the framework so that way when the war begins, Poland is ready to quite literally flip a switch and go into wartime mode with everything shifting into a wartime setting. That's generally what we're seeing from the Polish right now, which once again is giving us an idea that the tensions are running incredibly high between Russia and Eastern Europe, but how high really? And that's what a lot of people are gauging right now in this poll about these NATO air actions that are being conducted and why they're being conducted. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that? And what are you thinking about it as well?
Okay, so this is getting a lot more significant than we even reported yesterday because a one-off, like a one-day deployment of NATO aircraft to surveil Kaliningrad, that would have been one thing, but now it's continuing over 2 days straight. So why do you think that is, that NATO keeps deploying these aircraft forces to surveil the Kaliningrad region? Why do you think that is? And 50% said NATO is simply still just trying to warn Putin away from taking any provocations against NATO, while 26% said Russian forces are likely deploying, and that's what NATO is trying to keep an eye on, while 21% said NATO is preparing invasion plans for the area of Kaliningrad, and that's what they're doing, surveilling it, is trying to develop those plans. And I would say that I think this is more than a warning. At this point, I think there might be something materially happening on the ground that NATO's interested in, because for 2 days in a row, I think that indicates that something's happening, like maybe a deployment on the ground in Kaliningrad, or maybe they're moving missile forces around or something like that inside of the Kaliningrad enclave that Russia operates. So I'm with the 26%. I think they are deploying. I think something's going on the ground. I think this is more than a simple warning, which is concerning, to say the least, because Kaliningrad could be used as a launching point for a possible incursion into the Baltics. But Enforcer, what say you?
Also notice, speaking of that, because I would also have to agree with Matthew there, it's very interesting to observe that they had two AWACS aircraft up. They had NATO 42, call sign NATO 42, up inside of northern Germany, and they had NATO 1 stationed in the northwestern area of Poland. That's something that's very interesting, folks. They're setting up a clear AWACS perimeter with aerial tankers surrounding them, also including one farther up north in the Baltic, throughout the whole of northern continental Europe in this area, near to the Baltic Sea. And that's something interesting. I think that's suggesting that they're expecting some sort of Russian action from the Baltic, and they're trying to detect it and keep enough multi-role aircraft up in the air, armed and ready to go, that if something does happen, they might be trying to shoot it down, because 2 days of this, folks, is quite odd. And the fact that we've not heard of an announced military exercise at this point after the first day is also raising an eyebrow on my end and moving this a lot more from they're just trying to conduct some sort of a military action or some sort of a war game or a simulation to intimidate the Russians into that they're doing this in some form of a defensive posture in case of something might happen.
Oh, yeah. Also, not to mention, when you combine this NATO deployment around Kaliningrad, the encirclement with surveillance aircraft, and you combine that with the recent reports that came out saying that it looks like Putin's preparing to do something and aggress against the Baltics, or potentially aggress against Poland in a pretty serious way, I mean, that starts to look very damning, to say the least. Like between that intel report and this deployment of aircraft, and also like no real like strong statements whatsoever, like you mentioned, about a military exercise or anything. There's really no detail about this. They're pretending like it's not happening, which is also information in itself. So I'm honestly, this one's kind of got me on edge a little bit. I'm kind of wondering if maybe Russia is bolstering Kaliningrad for maybe some sort of ground incursion, maybe into Lithuania or something like that. Like it seems like it could be something that serious.
Breaking news! I forgot to mention, folks, by the way, there was another E3 Sentry down here. It's just that it said NA as its call sign, so I didn't realize that. And while Matthew was talking, I just noticed there was a third AWACS that was actually up in northern Romania, at the same time as the other two AWACS were up in Germany and Poland. That is clearly trying to look for something. I mean, you don't send up that many AWACS aircraft for nothing, and also aerial tankers most likely supporting multi-role aircraft. That is way too many air assets just in support numbers alone in the air for it to be absolutely nothing. I mean, if it would be a warning, folks, if it was maybe like a day of this sort of a deal and just doing it once over to show, hey, look, we can do this and we are ready to go and we are prepared. But doing this 2 days in a row, and even sending up more AWACS aircraft today than yesterday, and also where they have basically an entire detection arc throughout the North German and North Polish coastlines, and also along the entire Polish-Romanian border, they're certainly looking for something. And it's got to be something that the Russians are doing. Maybe some sort of a drone or missile attack on the NATO territory again, or that the Russians may be preparing some sort of a military operation near to the Suwalki Gap or throughout the whole of Europe. Maybe there's a concern that there is some sort of a possibility of a missile and drone attack being launched preemptively against NATO that might try and affect the entirety of Europe simultaneously, possibly. It's a little bit concerning, though. This is starting to move folks from what I said yesterday, if it's most likely just a warning, to this might be that an anticipatory action, and they're expecting something to come from the Russians sometime around. But moving us on
Yeah.
from that,
And also another thing too, if NATO was trying to get surveillance to refine our war plans, like for example, if NATO wants to go and try to take Kaliningrad preemptively or something like that in the name of defense, we don't really need to do this because we've already done surveillance on Kaliningrad. They already know the general layout of the area. They know generally the Russian force, status in the area. They pretty much know all that stuff already. They're not ignorant to it. NATO knows how they're set up inside of Kaliningrad. So that's why I'm thinking it seems like something more as well.
it does seem like something more. I would agree. So moving us on from that and on into the rest of the news that we have for the day, it's now time for us folks to finally make it on and back into the Russian Federation, because we actually have a little bit of extra news left inside of Russia that we haven't covered yet. It appears that according to Jay and Kiev, a large-scale mobilization in the Russian Federation is being conducted, and from what we're understanding, they're trying to lure little kiddos in Russia into the armed forces. This is what the actual job listings look like in Russian. This is what they are translated to English. Security for wild berries in ozone warehouses as part of the group not really explaining what that is, from 226,000 rubles in hand. That's kind of odd. Isn't that like the sign-on bonus to volunteer into the Russian army? Isn't that like the same amount?
That's 2,600 USD right there.
You know, I swear, Matthew, that I think that's the sign-on bonus for signing a contract right now in Russia to join the Russian army.
Interesting. But why would they need to disguise it though?
I don't know. I don't really know, to be honest with you. But also read the description here. Don't delay signing the contract for this current vacancy with one-time payment before the mobilization stages begin. Once the contract with the Ministry of Defense is signed, the lump sum payment is transferred in full with no delays. So this is an ad from the Russian Ministry of Defense, apparently.
I'll be honest with you. Something about this is setting off my BS meter. Like something about this screenshot right here. I can't quite place it, but something is setting off my BS meter with this. What even website did this come from? I mean, there's no name of the website apparently here from the looks of it. I would say take this one with a grain of salt. Something about this doesn't look right.
Well, I mean, we did see the Russians gathering at people directly off the streets. Why wouldn't we?
Yeah, but I mean, to put up an ad like this almost seems like something that's being put out to like kind of like bolster the idea that these warehouses are being used for military purposes or something. Like the ads for this don't even really look like it makes sense. I mean, something about this looks not quite right.
Well, I mean, I don't know the website, but I would generally assume, I mean, Jay and Kiev is a fairly reliable source. I would feel like he probably sourced this accurately rather than just, kind of like fibbing it, sort of.
I mean, he could have gotten mistaken. I'm not saying anything about him specifically. I'm just talking about the actual ad. Like to me, it looks like BS. I'll be honest.
Well, we'll have to see. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But moving us on out of that news and out of the Moscow area, we've also been able to see that in the area of the south, in the Domodedovo area, we were able to see that the warehouse that was on fire in the area that was hit on August 16th has completely burned to the ground and was completely destroyed as a result of the Ukrainian drone attack. So we can see that the Koledino and Domodedovo Wildberries facilities have both been destroyed as a result of the strikes from just recently. There actually was a video as well showing the debris of the building right here, which I'll have to mute the audio for. But here is the aftermath of the destruction and carnage that sits here. Oh, boy. We see here the complete destruction of the building. And so, moving us on from that clip, and moving us on out of the Moscow city area, it's now time for us to move on down and into the regions of the state of Ukraine, because it's time for us to get on into the war news. Unfortunately, the Russian Federation did launch its drone and missile attack, which was expected earlier in the day, and it does appear to have caused some significant damage within the state of Ukraine, within the cities of Kyiv, Zhytomyr, and Kryvyi Rih. In the city of Zhytomyr, a national police building was directly hit by Russian drones several times, as we're able to see in this clip here, showing one of the impacts of the drones inside the city of Zhytomyr.
Ух ты ж! Обалдеть.
Oh dear.
Пропонуйте-ка.
Moving us on from that clip in the Zhytomyr area, we also were able to see that inside of Kyiv, just several hours ago, around 25 Russian missiles struck the city in the course of about 20 minutes, with one of them being seen here on this camera impacting the city below. We also were able to hear simultaneously that in the area of Kryvyi Rih, there were also significant strikes being conducted on the city here as well, with these clips once again showing these direct impacts into the state of Ukraine.
Я это тоже снял.
And we also were able to get this clip as well, the strikes in Kryvyi Rih.
Еще.
I think the Russians like to strike Kryvyi Rih because that's Zelensky's hometown. Because it's like, why out of all the places they could strike, they're striking Kryvyi Rih. It's like, what even is in Kryvyi Rih that they're trying to hit?
Kryvyi Rih has some significant mines and metallurgical facilities that exist around it. To list some of the major industries, we understand that Heidelberg Cement, this large metallurgical plant, I don't know the name of it. I believe it's literally called like the Kryvyi Reefstall or something like that. We also know that there is a large, I believe, iron quarry or iron mine up here. You can see that the ground is generally reddish colored, I believe, from the iron itself that's mined here. And there's also a military airfield that may or may not be operational by the Ukrainian Armed Forces here on the eastern side of the city. And there are also a significant number of additional mines, I believe including open pit coal mines, that exist within the area. So as far as industry that could be related to a war effort, there's a pretty decent amount of it. Outside of that, I wouldn't really be able to tell you exactly what kind of military assets or forces are in the area. But most of these strikes, interestingly enough, aren't even hitting any of these industrial sites. Most of them are just hitting the actual city itself and the civilians within it. So I honestly would say, beyond me going out of the way to say there are a lot of war industries or industries that could be considered a part of the war effort in Kryvyi Rih, it really doesn't look like they're hitting any of those. Actually, it looks like they are just hitting the citizens of Kryvyi Rih just because Zelensky is from there, possibly as some form of personal retaliation, which makes no sense because it's not really furthering the Russian war effort, but they keep doing it day after day with really no end in sight on this particular city for no real reason. But moving us on out of Kryvyi Rih and on out of those unfortunate strikes that we were able to see overnight, we also were able to see that outside of this, inside of our location unknowns, there was a very interesting clip that came out today from a Ukrainian soldier, getting this thing onto a brighter note, as we were able to hear that a Ukrainian soldier using an MG3, the classic The old buzzsaw, as some people call it. This one's actually not chambered in 7.92 Mauser. This one's actually chambered in 7.62 by 51 NATO. But they used it to shoot down a Russian drone at near point-blank ranges. This was absolutely baller. So here's the clip.
Oh, look at that. Now, that word better than a pansier.
Man, I gotta say, man, that is really cool. Seeing MG3 in Ukraine, like, you would never expect that, man. I mean, that is really, really cool. I didn't really sound like an MG3, though. Honestly, man, it kind of almost sounded like an M240.
It kind of did a little bit.
Well, anyways, moving us on from that, we also got the Russian casualty report today, and holy moly, goodness gracious, they got one Bobcat.
I can live with one. I mean, one, you can live with it. You can live with it. You don't have to live without it, but you can live with it. But tell us more.
I mean, you don't have to live with it or without it. But anyways, Russian losses from August 19, 2026, this day of 1,638. Most categories are below recent averages, except 19 ground robotic complexes tied again as the highest daily loss. And personnel losses range 1,100 to 1,500 a day, 3 weeks to 1.5 million. And over the course of the past 24 hours, folks, Miss DC Keeper of the Records was able to give us the MOD's direct casualty report and loss report. And according to the loss report, 1,190 Russians were smoked over the past 24 hours. They put them in that smoker and they smoked that meat. We were also able to see the 2 main battle tanks were lost, along with 50 artillery pieces, 3 MLRSs, 1,738 drones on the front lines and also in deep strikes against Ukraine, 19 ground robotic complexes, 427 supply trucks, and 1 Bobcat skid steer. All in all, not a bad day. The Ukrainians are still keeping the losses on up there, and making sure to bleed the Russians for every inch of ground that they may take or lose. Moving us on into the Vovchansk area, we also got to see that some Russian infiltrators today that were trying to set up a little propaganda flick to make it look like they had taken a key area around the Vovchansk city region, were actually deleted today from existence by the Ukrainian drone forces. We see them doing the interview here. He's like, yes, they came up and they were like, hey, yo, what's up? We own this place. And I was like, no, you don't, suka.
It's like the same visual setup as like that, like, you know, when they do documentaries about drug dealers and stuff like that, like Underworld Incorporated or something like that. It's got the same vibe.
Man, honestly, it kind of does, man. Like, they got the gun and the ammo belts and stuff. I mean, they got the setup.
So, let me ask you, man, how long have you been trapping? I've been in this trap house for like at least 50 years. It's been a real bit of a slog, but I still in that grind, trying to stay out the pin.
Why do you sell drugs? Man, like, man, I do it because it put food on my family. But why do you have to do
I'm just trying to put food on the family. Don't ask too many questions.
Bro, man, if you're around Louis Theroux, man, he's going to be asking plenty of questions. What is this that you have here? What's this white powdery substance? Man, that's cocaine, man. Why do you have that? Like, what's it for? Man, it's like, man.
Why do you like to go around knocking people off? Well, it's not really exactly something for enjoyment, but you have to do what you do to survive, you know what I mean?
Man, they say, man, we rolling up on Travis. They go in there, you hear a whole bunch of screaming and stuff, they come back out. So, what did you do in there? Man, we clapped a bitch. What does that mean? Clapping a bitch? Like, it's like, man, that's like, honestly, man, those documentaries
Really, what
are
does
great.
that mean, really? I mean, honestly.
Man, I was gonna say cut a bit, but I was like, I don't know if I can say that, but then I said it anyways. Man, I got you. But anyways, you see here that they have tracked down the Russian infiltrators to their very hiding spot right here, where they're about to film that video.
Also, I see Ella MC Wills Naffa said the most stupid questions get asked in those documentaries. I think honestly, it was just because the interviewer scared shitless, really. Like they're in a drug den somewhere with some dude with a mask on that's like possibly like murdered people and stuff like that. They're probably just scared to death, so their mind's not really functioning properly. They're just like, please don't kill me. Let me try to do this interview in the meantime.
Honestly, though, Louis Theroux is a real one. I mean, he's like nervous and stuff, but he's never like terrified. And usually, folks, he's like asking like the kind of obvious questions to kind of bring a bit of comedy to it. Like that one time he was with the Westboro magistrate. She's like, not Diane. Like, you can't do Diane. Like, it's like, bro, it's like, that was just funny as hell. It's like, you know, it also, like, I think, like, the simple questions are asked to build a base of understanding of how these people view things a certain way. But we can see that this little Russian infiltrator team's right there in that bunker. Man, a Ukrainian creeped right up on top of them. They didn't even know.
Louis just tries to get in their head to understand where they're coming from and why they got in these certain circumstances.
What do you like drinking? It's like, man, it's like just straight up questions. Wouldn't you like to stop?
Honestly, he's got a good style though. Like he knows how to like break down that barrier. Because you know how everybody like puts up a barrier. Like there's that initial like phase when you like somebody's trying to portray a certain image, and then you sort of like break that image down a bit to get behind the curtain a little bit. Like he gets behind the curtain pretty quick with people.
Yeah, he does. I think it's because he puts on like a like kind of like a character where he's like he doesn't really know anything at all. He's like,
It's very disarming.
yeah, he's like, what do you hate these people? Is there a reason? And then like, you know, the way he asks it, it's like, oh, they're like you're not really agreeing with them, but you're also giving them space to elaborate, so it makes them feel like comfortable, like you might get them. And then that helps him out a great deal.
And also, he kind of goes into it like slightly awkward. I think that actually helps. Like going into something like too confident, like that's going to keep somebody's guard up. If you're like slightly awkward or slightly uncomfortable a little bit, like it makes the other person feel like they have an edge over you, so that they naturally start yapping a lot more. So I think that's part of it.
Man, I'm not gonna lie, man. Those ones that he did with the Westboro Baptist Church were insane. Like I was like, damn. Like these. Also, the Scientology one was crazy too.
So what's going on in this clip right now is this dude's like we don't hear anything he's saying or anything.
That's what he's saying, and it came with music. But they got the infiltrators. We're gonna cut this one short, folks, because it's more of like an interview storytelling kind of a format. But they basically got the infiltrators and nabbed them. And what the Russians were trying to do in this clip is that they were trying to get behind the Ukrainian lines to film a video holding a Russian flag and to claim near to a landmark that they had taken that area from the Ukrainian armed forces, and the Ukrainians stopped them from doing that by obliterating them with drones that were dropping bombs on top of them. So that's largely the story that happened in the Vovchansk area today. Moving us on from that and on into the area of Kupiansk, we also were able to see them striking Russian forces here in the 72nd Mechanized Brigade. Oh, I have to mute that, sadly.
Mhm.
I saw someone say, we're completely misunderstanding the Iran war. We need to cool the jets. Don't you realize, silly? We are. We ended the war. They're not even flying anymore. Oh, man. But they got that truck nice and good. Like, they got it good. They had it good, T. They hit it hard. Moving us on from that clip up in the Kupiansk area, we also were able to see, moving us down the line and into the area of Svatove, the Yansin B was hit quite nicely as well in some counter battery action by Ukrainian FPV drones.
Oh, I love that counter battery action.
Man, that counter battery is something else, man. Like they always say, they go Energizer, I go Duracell. I get them, man, with that counter battery.
Man, that's a charge.
Man,
That was a good one right there. You
Man,
see like a
that
battery
was a
charge
good
and
one.
also like a crime charge too. That's a triple entendre.
Man,
It's
honestly,
a triple entendre. You gotta love it when you throw out a little entendre. It really gets them every time. A little entendre. That gets right under the skin, sir. Sir, entendre. Brand new term.
man, honestly,
So they serve it at restaurants. They said, sir, it's better than a tortilla. It's better than enchilada. It's called entendre.
by the way, folks, to let y'all in on the scoop going on in the live chat, someone said that we are completely rushing the. Let's see, just read word for word. I truly wish you guys would stop the hair on fire routine whenever Iran issues its latest hysterical proclamations. It takes patience to discredit an ideology. Cool your jets. Well, I mean, you know, they followed through with a lot of their threats in the past, so I really don't have a reason to doubt them. I have a lot of reason to doubt the U.S. government, though, because they make a whole bunch of threats and they hardly follow through with any of them, or they hardly ever pan out to what they were making them out to be. So I kind of got a reason not to believe the U.S. government on a lot of their threats. But when the Iranians make a threat that they're going to be attacking someone, we generally take that at face value because every other time they've made that threat, they've actually followed through with it. So I don't really think we need to cool our jets. And also, I don't even own a jet. I mean, we're not that rich. I mean, damn. Moving us on from that and into the Konstantinivka area, we also get to see a Ukrainian Boldana in action. Take a little look. Oh, man, they got music. But look at that beautiful Bodana. In a second, they'll fire. And there we go.
Oh,
Man, something else right there. But moving us on from that, and on out of that little bit of news right there, we also got to see in the Pokrovsk area, the Ukrainians who are playing that trap bass every single time. I can't even mute it quick enough. Like every time I hear that music, even for a millisecond, folks, I hear Matthew yelling, music, like in my head, like every single time. I'm trying, man, I'm trying. But we were able to see that the Ukrainians blew up a rare Russian mine-laying vehicle today. This is actually something of an MLRS mine layer, and they were able to get it today near the Pokrovsk area. Look, the Russians were even still running it. You can see the tires turning up there as this drone gently goes in and taps the fuel tank. They call it a love tap. That thing's cooking up a storm.
Just a little love tap, sir. That's what he said. They love a little tap. That's a little tap. That's sir. Just a little tap. Not a grab, just a tap, sir. That's all it is.
Unlike other things where you grab them, well, I'll stop it there.
Oh, no.
Moving us on down to the southern front near Zaporizhia, we also were able to see the Ukrainian MiG-29s continuing their airstrikes against Russian forces. You see them pulling on up, getting on up there. Ooh!
Sir. Oh, little love tap. They hit that building. They tapped it. They tapped it right. They did it
Oh!
right. Look at that. They did it. Just a little smooch, like you're kissing your sister. That's what they said on Penguins of Madagascar. I didn't say that. That's what they say on Penguins of Madagascar. Sir, those penguins of Madagascar. They talk. They're smart. I only like smart penguins.
Man,
We're going to tariff them.
Man, this Ukrainian pilot, man, was possessed with the spirit of Obama. Because, man, when he dropped the first bomb, he heard in his head, hit him with a double tap. And he went, yes. Like, and he dropped another one on him. It's like, dang, that's wild. A double tap. But moving us on from that and on out of that little bit of news right there, we also got to see that further on down and towards the area of Tokmak, the Ukrainians were making sure in the 42nd Brigade to knock out Russian logistics vehicles, Buhankas in particular, UAZ 469s as they're called. UAZ 469, damn, she's fine, or whatever, however the song goes. But, they ran into each other. Did you see that? They play bumper cars, man. You look, behold, bumper cars.
Oh, look at that.
And they're on their way.
And there they go.
Oh.
Oh, no.
I don't think they
Now
go
they're
in
about
far.
to now they're about to have a little,
That Bohanka was cooked up cleanly. And they gave him the medicine.
They gave him the medicine. Cooked him nicely.
I'm going to burn him. Why would you burn him? Like, it's like, were you really going to? Yes, I was going to burn him. It's like, bro, it's like, no wonder the village is trying to get you.
Those South African security forces don't play around. They're like, why did you beat that man? We cooked him nicely. It's like, oh, okay.
The man was clearly scared to talk after his treatment from the shambocking. It's like, shit. It's like, look at him. It's like, this guy's been beat to an inch of his life. It's like, I don't really think he's wanting to talk much right now.
They're calling a brutal beating medicine, so I think that kind of tells you where things stand a little bit.
Man, I liked it though, man, when he went up to the apartment block and those guys were saying, yeah, man, if we go in there, they're going to try and kill us all. And he said, let's go in. Let's take a quick look. Like, and they hopped in there real quick. It's like, dang, that was daring. It's like, what if they were there? We also get to see that down on the M14 highway, there was once again major destruction being afflicted to the Russian supply lines. Great shame and travesty be upon them in 50 generations. Life just doesn't get better for Russians. Boy. Well, anyways, enough of that stuff. We don't need to see any more of that. We need to see what's going on down in Crimea. So moving us on down into the Crimean Peninsula, we were able to get some reports today of gunfire and explosions, particularly around the area of Yepataria and Saki, where there is a large Russian airbase that has been operating throughout most of the war, and also drones over Harvitske, heading towards Simferopol, and an explosion in Feodosia. So to show you all here on the map where these explosion locations were, there was air defense fire around Yevpatoria and Saki, which is right where the mouse cursor is at. There were drones over Hervitske heading towards Simferopol, and there was also an explosion in Feodosia over here as well. So generally the entirety of the peninsula was under attack tonight. Sadly, we really don't have a lot of video and picture evidence of that attack even still, but we did get to see something else that was quite interesting. There were explosions in Sevastopol, particularly, according to the firm satellite, on this Black Sea Fleet strategic storage depot in the hills above the city of Sevastopol. Firms did detect a fire on this absolute crapper of a facility, which looks to have been hit by a Ukrainian drone and completely destroyed by the fire. We also were able to see as well that the Russians are setting up anti-drone nets around a turbine, 129 megawatt mobile gas turbine in Sevastopol. And the nearby Sevastopol power substation has no such protection. One generating unit at the power plant was damaged by a drone explosion yesterday. So Russia is trying to find a way to preserve the remaining amounts of electrical production plants they have in Ukraine, but I have a feeling these defenses might not actually work all too well, given the fact that the Ukrainians usually get through those sorts of defenses in the mainland of Russia. Also, we were able to hear that the Ukrainians hit another 4 ships in the Black Sea today by the unmanned systems forces. Apparently, they called them Molochka. And we also were able to see that within the Novorossiysk area, things are not going well. They got a ballistic missile threat tonight. Oh, there's the Russians firing some of theirs.
And that's out of Novorossiysk?
Yes, that's the one time that the Black Sea Fleet leaves the Vostochny Rayon is to fire off these missiles.
Damn.
So moving us on out of that clip at Novorossiysk, it's now time for us folks to finally make it on up into Kyiv and to cover the speech from the President of Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky, here on this day of 1,638 of the war. And so, without further ado, here is the speech. Peach!
Шановні українці і українки, сьогодні вранці росіяни завдали удар дроном по маршрутці в Херсоні. Чергове звірство, які окупанти роблять щодня. Абсолютно точно було зрозуміло, що це звичайна маршрутка, це цивільний транспорт, але все одно росіяни по ній ударили. Вже в другій половині цього ж дня росіяни ударили по Житомиру. Цілеспрямовано, підло по будівлі управління поліції. Всю добу. Ще одну добу війни удари по Запоріжжю і Харківщині, по Сумщині, Чернігівщині, Донеччині, Дніпровщині. На жаль, є загиблі. Тільки в Херсоні, тільки від одного того удару по маршрутці 4 людини загинули. Від удару по Житомиру майже 30 людей поранені, загиблих 2. Є жертви, на жаль, і в інших регіонах. Мої співчуття усім рідним і близьким тих, чиє життя забрав російський терор. Моє головне завдання для міністра оборони України в цих умовах – це реальне налаштування системи нашої оборони, системи виробництва і закупівель, системи постачання у війська. Таке налаштування, щоб захист життя в Україні отримав все необхідне для відбиття російських ударів, для утримання позицій на фронті, для активних дій наших і завдання відчутних ударів Росії у відповідь на її терор, на цю війну, на ці вбивства, які Путін перетворив фактично на нову російську ідеологію. Треба виривати коріння цієї ідеології війни. Євгеній Хмара своєю службою ще в Альфі довів, що він слів на вітер не кидає і точно знає, що окупантів не б'ють пустими обіцянками. Розраховує, що Міністерство оборони розширить простір застосування наших діпстрайків. Разом з виробниками української зброї забезпечить більше можливостей захисту українського неба і разом з партнерами додасть можливостей нашим оборонним операціям та нашим наступальним діям. Вже є хороша взаємодія Хмари і Драпатова. Дякую за це. Перед зимою ми в Україні маємо бути впевнені і будемо впевнені у нашій обороні, у наших позиціях максимально, наскільки це можливо. Я вдячний парламентарям за таку відчутну підтримку сьогодні Хмари на посаду міністра оборони, за підтримку Андрія Сибіги на посаду міністра закордонних справ України. Наша дипломатія теж має абсолютно чіткі завдання. Це стосується такої комунікації з партнерами, яка має забезпечити Україні більше сили, навіть в умовах політичної турбулентності, в яку Європа може зайти із початком нового політичного сезону. Нам потрібна стабільність підтримки, стійкість в взаємовідносинах з партнерами, а отже, сучасність в роботі дипломатичного корпусу, сучасні інструменти дипломатії, сучасні підходи для вирішення питань і цілком конкретні результати. Дякую також сьогодні за ухвалення закону, який ми обговорювали детально, який має розширити програми підтримки однієї з найбільш вразливих частин нашого суспільства – сімей з дітьми з інвалідністю. Закон, який гарантує збільшення підтримки, також запроваджує багаторівневу систему соціальних послуг для дітей за рахунок держави. Я очікую закон якнайшвидше для підписання і уряду повністю врахувати це в бюджеті. Ще одне. Я підписав указ про відзначення званням Героя України молодшого лейтенанта Владислава Польського за швидку та хоробру реакцію в бойовій обстановці і порятунок життів наших воїнів. 15 серпня відбулася безумовно героїчна подія. Владислав на пікапі врятував 2 хлопців із зони ураження російських дронів. Наші воїни виконували бойове завдання і були поранені. Відбулася евакуація за допомогою НРК. Росіяни ударили по цьому НРК. І щоб не втратити життя людей, не втратити час, Владислав вирішив діяти і на пікапі забрав хлопців. Видатна історія, велика сміливість, приклад вчинку командира, який вартий наслідування. Треба дбати про людей. Дякую, Владиславе. І сьогодні був обмін. Ми повернули з російського полону ще 103 людини. Наші воїни. Це непросто, але ми продовжуємо працювати, щоб обміни були. Готуємо наступний етап обмінів. Дякую усім нашим воїнам. Кожній, хто захищає Україну, хто захищає людей. Важливо всім разом працювати на Україну, на наш народ. І готуємо завтра серйозні санкції. Слава Україні!
Slava.
Damn. Bro, turn into Squeaker, bro. Like, Slava, man, like, damn.
Man, Zelensky was speaking forceful, so I was trying to match his tone, but I think I overdid it.
Bro, you busted a gasket on that shit, bro. Like, you went, here comes Slava, bro. I was like, oh, bro. I was like, oh my goodness. But man, are you good? Are you like, is your vocal cords all right? Because it sounded like they literally blew up.
I'm never good.
Me either. Real. But beyond that, though, that is the end of the speech from the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, here on day 1638 of the news from around the world. And it's time for us, folks, to move on into the question segment where we get to talk to each and every single one of y'all. And I gotta say, folks, what a blast it's going to be. We can talk about literally anything and everything that y'all want to talk about, except for religion, politics, climate change, whether the A-10's relevant in modern warfare or not, whether Iran could be nuked in certain circumstances, and a couple of other things. But those are really the more important 5 of them. But with that, it's time for us to get on into them questions and start knocking them out one at a time. So, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so jumping into our final question segment of the night and getting our super chats, our live chats, and our Morse code decoders of the stream, it is time to jump right into it. Also, by the way, for everybody asking, no breaking news right now. It looks like we are clear for right now, at least when it comes to breaking news. If something does happen, we will shout it out, of course. But moving into our first super chat, this one goes to none other than Punisher of the North, who puts in that $20 support. And thank you very much, Punisher, for that 20. And we do appreciate that very, very much as usual. They said, hello from me, Enforcer Daniel, and Enforcer Daniel's mom. And hello there to the entire family, by the way. They said, I can't wait until I work my way up to a channel legend. And take one from the chat, please, and LT, LSA.
And long live the Lee Spring Army. And a huge thanks to you, Punisher of the North. You know what? I'd have to say you have hit channel legend. You are a channel legend. Because I think a lot of people know you, Enforcer Daniel, and Enforcer Daniel's mom these days. A lot of people know y'all because it's really cool to know that there's an entire family watching the Enforcer show. And I hope that once again we've been able to deliver tonight to hopefully give some valuable information on what's going on around the world and hopefully a little bit of entertainment as well. Maybe a couple of jokes and maybe a few laughs. But I gotta say, a huge thanks to you for support, Punisher of the North. And we will make sure to take one from the chat. So Matthew, what do we got from the live chat in honor of the Punisher family?
All right, so that live chat question is going to go to none other than Adam McLean, who said, can we really believe that the U.S. has only used about 50% of missile stockpiles, or is it a bigger number? And LSA.
I think it's a bigger number. I mean, the contracts that they're putting out right now for munitions are so extreme in number that we have to have been running exceptionally low at this point in munitions. There's no way in the world we would be making such large bids and contracts here in the United States right now in the defense industries if the U.S. was not running low on munitions. And also, if we weren't running low, why in the world would we be fulfilling, well, even putting out bids like that anyways? I think all that is showing that we have probably expended more than 50%. I would actually have to go with Ghost Hunter in the chat. I would say probably 60 to 70% in my opinion. But Matthew, what do you think?
Honestly, let me go back and look at the question. Can we really believe the U.S. has only used about 50% of missile stockpiles, or is it a bigger number? Honestly, I would be just like wildly guessing if I had to say like exactly what it is. All I can really say is that it sounds to me like they've burned through a hell of a lot more at a higher rate than they should have, which indicates a lack of planning, which is what we've been saying the entire time. Sadly, I couldn't put a number to it. I just wouldn't know, and taking a guess would be largely useless on my end. But it's just a lack of planning, and that's dangerous in a war because if one war breaks out, then another one breaks out somewhere else, and the U.S. has to respond to multiple different regions. That puts us in a precarious spot, to say the least. So yeah, so I would say so.
And so, I hope that addresses that well. And a big thanks to you for the incredible support, by the way, for the Punisher family, once again, for that incredible support and helping this channel to keep it running. And long live the Leaf Spring Army, and the Leaf Spring Army will never truly die. And we're on to the next one.
We also have a $20 support from Mr. Glock, who's there LSA, and thank you, Mr. Glock, for that 20. We do appreciate that. He said, "Why doesn't Ukraine hit the National Defense Control Center about 2 miles from Red Square in LSA?"
It might be deemed an unessential target, and it also might be deemed as significantly escalatory, because one thing that we have not seen either country do yet is blow up each other's Ministry of Defense or anything that's involved in those very upper levels of command. And I think that's a line that both countries are not willing to cross because they know that the other has the ability to destroy the other nations if they are attacked in that form. So I think that's the reason why they aren't hitting it, because let's think about it, folks. The Russians have never directly fired a missile directly at where Zelensky's at to kill him. They've also never fired directly at the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense or the Ukrainian SPU office and tried to blow up or destroy either of those directly. And the Ukrainians, on the other hand, have not hit the FSB Directorate building in Moscow. They have not hit the Kremlin, and they also haven't hit the MOD building either. So I think that building specifically is kind of in that category of kind of off limits in a sense, because it might be considered too escalatory, and that might lead the Russians to start conducting attacks in return on equal measure on whatever sites or facilities would be similar in form inside of Ukraine, which I think the Ukrainians and the Russians would both like to avoid that kind of an outcome as much as possible. So I hope that does address it the best I can, at least in my opinion, because it is interesting. It's like they haven't hit any of those. Either side has. They've hit everything else but those buildings. And also, I just saw a BC guy say, or the Rada. Yeah, and the Ukrainians haven't hit the Duma either. So it really is, I think you're quite truly is that they just don't want to hit it because it might be significantly escalatory without really any positive sort of an outcome that would outweigh the risk. But a huge thanks to you once again for the support, Glock, who's there. Great question, by the way. And long live the Leaf Spring Army. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, I saw Evzen Kovar saying in the live chat, he said, "The wife and I were listening earlier whilst on the highway, and we both decided we love it when you boys take a different take on something, but patiently listen to each other, and you guys are a class act." We try not to get into a brawl over stuff like that. Now, if we're off there, we're brawling. I'm joking, by the way.
Fist are flying.
Most of the time, at least.
Like fisticuffs.
Oh yeah, I'll tell you, it's like a UFC match off the, not really though, but in all seriousness, like occasionally, of course, we're brothers, so occasionally we have really not brawls as in like fist fights, but like arguments and stuff. That's just natural. But we try to like keep it civil, because I hate getting on shows where people get into disagreements, which is natural to have a disagreement. People don't see eye to eye about everything, but I hate it when you get on shows and you hear people like legitimately getting like irate with each other. It's like, and these people will be they'll be older than us. They'll be like 30, 40, 50 years old, and they'll be fighting with each other like it's the end of the world because they had a disagreement, which is extremely immature. I just can't stand hearing people fight like that.
Yeah, it really is really unprofessional, uncouth, and churlish. I think it's really goofy to get into a fight over an opinion, because, like, at the end of the day, folks, it's like, if Matthew has a different opinion than me, and I have a different opinion than him, what's really going to come out of it? Nothing, really. I mean, like, that's kind of
Yeah.
the truth of it. So it's like, it's just a conversation, you know. It's not like your whole life is counting on being right or wrong on your opinion. You can, like, you can end up being wrong too, like actually proven wrong later, like a week or months after the conversation happened, and it just is what it is. You know, it's just,
Oh, yeah.
that's just life.
And I know I'm right anyway, so that's all that matters.
Come here, you son. Like, man, like, I'll beat you, man. Man, all jokes aside.
Why get so flustered when you know you're right anyway? Do I need any self reassurance? Of course I'm right. Of course I am, sir. I can't be wrong, sir. I just know I'm right.
Don't you
But
hate it
that's
when
something that not even the president, he has a hard time with that. Are you stupid, crooked? Are you stupid, crooked? I mean, it could be either one.
also, man, it's like honestly, that's so unprofessional that they do that now on CNN and Fox. Like they bring on the panels, like, all right, we're bringing in our token Republican and Democrat to go at it. All right, get to it. Like, and they just start, you're an idiot, you're a fool, and like they just do that on air, like for like 10 minutes. And they're like, okay, I think everyone, we had our violence for the hour. Now it's time for an ad break, and we'll come back and we'll have a totally different thing going on. It's like, that's really
Well, some people like
unprofessional.
that.
Yeah, it was
Well, some people
lame.
like it though. Some people are like, "Oh yeah, he's really getting over on him. He's really doing a number on him." It's like, okay, what do you have, like a 40 IQ or something? It's like you're not even listening to the argument. There's like they're there for the violence of the whole situation. That's what they're there for. They're just like savoring the fact that two people are like hating on hell on each other. It's like you don't even know what the hell they're arguing. It's like the same people that just want to see violence. It's like they don't even care what the violence is about. They just want to see the violence.
Yeah, I mean, really, that is the case. One thing I like on YouTube, it's a show style, and I know that we both know that it's kind of like bringing on the extremes, but I like it when they have like that 20-minute table thing where they have like that ring of people sitting around them and they debate like a certain topic or a
Oh,
point. Like it's
stupid Socratic circle bullcrap.
but it's interesting though. You know, it's interesting because like they actually listen to each other, so you actually get to hear their points instead of like a shouting match most of the time. So like it's kind of like I would say that the category requires some work because honestly, folks, it's kind of a little bit hard to say that it's a legitimate conversation when it's like, okay, we got 12 mafia bosses and one cop and they're arguing whether organized crime should be legal or not. It's like, well, this isn't really a question in society. Like, you know, this isn't like anything that's going to happen in the average daily life, but it would be cool to see them do that on other topics, like topics that actually affect us. Like, you know, I support public infrastructure funding, you know, and people who don't because they say it's a waste of
But
taxpayer money. I think those would be interesting debates.
they're interesting if people are willing to actually change their minds. Like those Socratic circle things we're talking about, where it's like 50 so and so's against one so and so. You know what I'm talking about? Like
Yeah.
those type of deals. Like they're kind of useless if you really think about it, because everybody's in there with their own agenda, trying to like push their agenda. It's like they're not actually there to have their minds changed or to hear a different perspective. They're there simply trying to win an argument. It's like, well, that's not really like that's not really my thing. It's like if people are actually open to change their minds about something, that's one aspect of it, which is the most productive in my opinion. But if somebody's just there pushing an agenda, it's like you're not making any progress at all.
No, but one thing that you can do with that though, like as far as like it being a big audience like that, you can let people listen to their points. Like if they're both dug in, which I mean both of us do sometimes here on the show. Like we'll dig in and be like, nah, I think I'm gonna stay with this. We'll have to agree to disagree. But at least it lets an audience hear the points and they can kind of sparse through. I think that was a good point, or this was a good point. And I think qualitatively this is a better argument than that one. At least when you put it in front of an audience, kind of as almost like a show or a presentation, it lets the audience decide between the two argument points, no matter if anyone's going to budge or not, which one they like better and which one sounded more fleshed out and more realistic when they actually hear all of the different points, counter arguments, and rebuttals brought up. So I think in that way it's pretty good. But in the other way, if it does, no one ever changes their minds on those shows. I completely agree with you. I've only seen one person do that out of I think like the 10 different episodes of that I've watched. Only one out of like maybe 130 people. So like the chances of that happening on a show is like astronomical. It's very slim.
Yeah, I would have to agree.
Man, honestly, I would agree as well. I mean, I was one who made the comment. Of course, I'd agree. But beyond that, though, we thank you so much for saying that we are a class act when we get into debates on air. We like to debate. We actually think it's fun. Some people, a very small group in the chat, hate it to rips. Like when we do, oh God, just move on or something like that. But there are a lot of people who really enjoy it, and I like getting into a good debate because it's interesting and it makes you think. It makes us think, and that's something that we don't have to do a whole lot in that way through the show. Like I have to think about where I'm taking the story next and what next bullet point there is, and Matthew's got to think about what poll is coming up next. We got to think that way, but you never get to think in a dynamic way where we actually have to listen to someone and come up with a counter argument or a rebuttal and then say it on air to counter each other's points. Those are very fun for both of us. I think we both enjoy those a great deal. And we hope that y'all do as well, because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that y'all are happy and enjoying everything. So hopefully y'all like the debates as well, because we find them to be quite a treat and really fun. But anyways, with that, it is time for us to move on and into the next one.
And our next one goes to well-trained and fit Jenna, last name Tolls, who put in a 50. And thank you for that support right there. Well-trained. I don't know what that means, well-trained in that context. We'll just have to let that sit. But they said, can we call in a silver alert on a particular politician live on the air and live when our phones go off?
Well,
Did he ever come out and has he been seen yet? Like, I haven't been keeping up with that whole thing because honestly I could really care less, to be completely honest, but it's like, has he come out?
Nah, he's working remotely now. No joke. That's actually what they said. He's working from home.
What'd they say? I think the last I heard he was in like physical therapy or something. Like, it's like, I guess.
But does that really help with the cognitive decline? That's my question. Like, it's like, maybe motor functions can return to normal, but it's like, the mind isn't. It's like, so
I mean, didn't they do that experiment with that shrimp on the treadmill, like underwater, and it like improved its cognitive function or something like that? Is that the same concept?
Maybe, but it's a shrimp, like the shrimp are very robust creatures.
Well,
you're not telling me they have Mitch on a treadmill underwater and they're just running him every day. Is that what you're saying?
no, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, hopefully he recovers quickly and is able to return to the job because, at some point, like, there should be a level of, if I'm not fit for this position, maybe I should just resign for the good of the country
retire,
instead of holding the position. Like, retirement is a thing. Like, you can retire. Like, if you're turning into a vegetable and you're not able to function in the position, you can't always retire.
Mr. Senator, you're gonna have to take this position from my cold, dead hands. Like, literally. It's like, damn, dude. It's like, okay, it's like, you can just retire, dude. This is not a kingdom. Like, you don't have to, you're not like the lord of the fiefdom for life, man. You can just retire and go live out whatever you have left. Like, it's probably not that long. Just go live it and enjoy it. And let someone else take the position. Because I gotta say, folks, I think it is absolutely goofy these days how many people are absolute, like, it's not that they're old that's the problem, it's that they're absolute codgers. Like, they have like no mental abilities or physical abilities left, and they're basically just up there kind of like the single-celled amoeba that trade on the oil markets on the futures. Like, it's like positive input green, negative input red. It's like, same thing. It's like, we don't need that in the Congress. We don't really need that in any branch of the government. We need people who are sharp and put together. It's like, and also we need people that have got some vitality to them, and a lot of these people these days don't have any of that. I mean, look at the president recently. I mean, he's falling asleep every day.
So you're sort of, I'm hearing a bad shift. You're sort of like leaning into that high T mindset now. It sounds like.
I think that it's that we should have mandatory testosterone testing for every Congress member, and if their testosterone is low, we should just pump them up with roids. Have roid raging congressmen every day of the week. Congressmen and women.
I heard.
Why not?
I heard a news outlet trying to defend that the other day. They're like, they're going to be pumping the testosterone in the military members, and it was like, if I feel cringe even repeating it, but they're like, the women on base will have to watch out. These dudes are going to be running around like animals. It's like, what the hell kind of like, the hell kind of comment is this? It's like, I feel dirty even hearing a comment like that. It's like, what does this mean? And also, it's like, the women should be watching out because the dude's gonna be running around like animals. Like, what are you describing here? You're describing, like, this is describing something really bad.
Man, oh boy, everyone. It's like, hey, look, there are now a whole bunch of additional assault reports coming out of the military. Boy, that's what we wanted these days. That's a whole bunch of people in the country are really asking for that one, I'm sure. Of course, being sarcastic there, but it's like, that's kind of a, like, honestly, who said that, man? Who said that? I have a feeling I know. Did it start with an F and end with an X?
It was a news station. There's only two main ones, so I think you can take a
Oh,
gist
yeah.
of who it probably was. I don't
Yeah.
think you'd hear that on the other channel.
They also made some statements about certain people enriching themselves. Hey, look, it's what they do. They're businessmen. I was like, what? I was like, you gotta be kidding me. It's like, what is this, the Gilded Age? Just like we just openly admit this stuff now? It's like it blows my mind these days, folks. Like the stuff he can get away with as long as you're in one party or the other. He can get away with anything at this point. It's not like you're not even in the United
You know,
States of America anymore. You're in whatever party you're in. You just get to do whatever you want.
you know what's bad though is apparently a large portion of audiences of these certain channels apparently relate or can find that humorous or funny or something like that. Apparently, a lot of them apparently do, or otherwise they wouldn't get away with saying that over and over and over, stuff like that.
Apparently, I don't know how, man, because like when honestly, folks, like I'm all for like a crass joke or like a dark joke or something, but like jokes like that, I
It's
don't
not even
really
a
get the
joke though.
humor in them. Like that's not even like, well, if it is a joke, it's like I don't even get the humor in that. That's not even really funny from a comical standpoint of like a joke. It's like, what's the punchline in that? It's like there is no punchline. It's
And
just
also,
saying it.
it's like, aren't a lot of these people married? It's like, I'm like, you're a lot of these people saying this stuff's married with wives. It's like, I'm like, I don't think your wife would support a statement like that. I really doubt that to a large degree. So it's like, what is this understanding of women that they're talking about? It's like, what women are they dealing with? That's like a desirable thing. It's like I don't know. I haven't heard that before.
Also, what about their kids? Like, they don't want their kids to hear that crap. It's like, it's like that's not really a good thing to teach your daughters or your sons that if they go into the military, there's going to be some dude roving around like some feral animal or something. It's like that's not really a good look for the military either. It's like it's not a good look for anything. It's like why the hell even make a joke like that? That's like the people who say like, "Oh boy, Geneva Convention, more like Geneva Suggestion." It's like that you think it sounds cute, but that actually sounds pretty damn sick. Like when you actually just say that out loud, it's like that doesn't sound good at all. And that's like the same vein of thinking there, really something. But anyways, with that, with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to Tom Exman, who put in a 20. And thank you, Tom, as well, for the $20 support. He said, take a live chat question.
And a big thanks to your support, Tom Exman. And of course, we will take one from the live chat in your honor. So what do we got, Matthew, from the live chat in honor of Tom Exman?
And this one's going to go to Basted with Mustard, who said, how long do you think the Iran war will continue?
Oh boy, I don't know. It's impossible to even predict at this point because we might completely leave the region and just let ourselves get screwed, or we might go back and we might try and fight the war for 2 week stints for another 5 years. I honestly couldn't even really tell you. It's a good question, but as far as this is going, it's so unpredictable and has been going so badly, it's almost impossible to even give a number at this point. But Matthew, what would you think?
I would say it's only a matter of time till the thing breaks back out in its full form again. That's my guess. But I've given up on trying to make time periods on stuff. Like trying to make a time period when you deal with the wild, irrational Iranian regime and also the wild, irrational U.S. leadership. It's a fool's errand to try to say when it's going to restart. So I think it will. Like, I think Iran's going to force her hand, actually. Like, Iran's probably going to force a confrontation before the midterms because they know how, like, fragile that is. And they're going to try to force a confrontation before then. I mean, look at what Iran's doing right now. I mean, they're attacking ships in Hormuz. They're attacking Dubai. They're threatening to hit Europe. They're not letting the ships go through. They're activating the Houthi forces to attack Saudi Arabia. I mean, Iran clearly does not view this peace deal or this, like, temporary pause in the hostilities. They don't view this as, like, an out or an exit ramp. They view it as a way to ramp up on their own end. They're not going to let us walk away.
Oh yeah, I would agree. But then the question is, how long does this really go on from then? It's like how long until it ends in our defeat or our victory, which is the question. Because I think you and me are definitely assured that it is going to restart at some point because they're largely going to force it. But the question is, when does it end? And I don't even know. I wouldn't even be able to give an idea.
Yeah, I don't, I really, like, I could give a wild number, but it's probably going to be inaccurate.
Man, you asked a live chat question that we torpedoed and we can't even answer it, man. Like, it's like, we don't even know. Like, I hate to say that too. It's a great question, but there's not even a good timetable we could give. I mean, with the war in Ukraine, we can always measure it and say, based off of today, it might last this much longer, and that won't be accurate, but at least it's a running approximate. With what's going on in the Middle East, there's so much stupidity involved in it and uncertainty. There's really no idea of how long it could go on. It could go on maybe for the next 2 weeks or 6 years. I have no clue what it could be in between that. So I hope that does address that the best I can. And a big thanks to you once again for the support, Tom Exman, and help with this channel to keep on running. Because if it was not for folks like you, we would not be able to make this channel possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep it running. And so with that, it's time for us to move on and into the next one.
And our next one goes to Jerome Street. And thank you, Jerome, for the $20 support. And we do appreciate that. He said, "You guys are always awesome, and I love the jokes."
Hey, and thank you so much for loving the jokes. And thank you for the kind words as well. We always hope that the jokes are landing. We have never known if they're landing or not. Because we've been doing this for 1,638 days without a live audience. We never hear anyone laugh at any of our jokes rather than each other. And when one of us doesn't laugh at a joke that the other makes, I feel like we both feel it, like we're playing into a quite literal dead room instead of like just playing into each other.
Oh, no. That's not the case. That's just insecurity talking.
Well, no, I mean, like, that's literally the only way to judge if a joke is good. Like, if you make a punchline and then it's dead silence afterwards, like, okay, like, it's like, all right, well,
I like that. I love that when a joke falls flat, personally. Like, I love, like, deadpan humor. That's my type of humor.
Man, I mean, honestly, it's not mine, man. Like, it's not mine. It's like, man, that's rough, man. We both got that guy, man. Like, please stop talking. It's like, it's a show. That's our job to talk. That's what we do. But beyond that, I thank you so much for enjoying our jokes. Hey, by the way, y'all like trains, don't you? I'm not gonna show this right now, but I gotta like soft release this. I worked on another one last night, folks. It was the first engine that I've ever done, not a rail car, an engine. I really want to show it to y'all, but I don't know if a lot of people are going to be interested in that, so I kind of gotta test out the waters and know. So if y'all are interested in it, let me know in the chat, and I'll show y'all what I cooked up. If not, we'll just move on and we'll not show it. So with that, we are on to the next one. But a huge thanks to Jerome Street once again.
Indeed. And our next one here goes to Gracie Rose 406. And thank you, Gracie, for the $20 support. We do appreciate that very much as well. And Gracie said, "When do you estimate Russia will run out of artillery pieces? Considering losses, rate of replacement, and lack of replacement barrels." And Google indicated late 2026 to 2027. And what say you? Losses are at over 18,000 per year.
It's really hard to say because we do know that they are building new artillery pieces, like, for example, Gyansen Bs and Gyansen Ss, but we do not know the number in which those are actually being produced. That's one of the few things Russia can produce internally, and we don't really know the number. So they could be running out soon, within the next year or year and a half, or because of their own production, they could be extending that on to the next 2 years instead. So I hope that does address that the best I can, at least with our roughest approximations, but there's always a lot of external factors that can be involved that can change that timetable. So while I'm saying a year to a year and a half unaffected and with their own internal production, maybe 2 years, take that with a grain of salt because that might be inaccurate. So I hope that does address that the best I can. And a big thanks to you once again for support. And as I'm looking at the chat, folks, I'm seeing that everybody wants to see this thing. Everybody wants to see it. Yes. Yes.
Also, someone said right here, Matt secretly wants to see the trains too. I've already seen the trains. I saw them in person today, and also I saw them over text too. So I've already seen the trains today. I've gotten the full look.
Man, you got to admit though, that thing is baller though.
Yeah, it does look pretty good. I told you that twice, 3 times today, I think.
Man, I have to hear it again. I'm kind of like the president. Unabashed narcissism is all the rage these days. But let me get up the pictures here in order so that way I can bring y'all through a slideshow in a sense. Because I worked on this thing, folks, all night last night after the show, and when I wasn't able to make a short video today because we didn't have enough news, I worked on it as well today. Busted my ass to get this thing done. It took about 5 hours to do it. So I spent quite literally every single minute of free time I had in between yesterday and today doing this. So let me get the best pictures I have of this thing so that way I can show it off well. So let's see. Yeah, here we go. So here are the pictures that I'm going to show. So now it's time for me to get y'all through the story. So 2.5 years ago, folks, I bought this AC 4400 CW. I have 2 of these, number 17 and number 420. This is number 420. This is to show y'all what it looked like before. And I was wanting to move on to weathering an actual locomotive because they're very difficult to do compared to rail cars because there's a lot of other stuff involved that you don't have to do with a rail car. So I was sitting there with all of the model engines that I have, most of them Norfolk Southern or L&N, and I looked at these and I was like, well, I don't really have any plan to use CSX, and so let me try and weather it, and if anything goes wrong, like I destroy the electronics or something, at least I won't be using this thing. It's actually, if y'all know anything about model railroading, this is actually an Athearn Genesis model, so these things are not low end. So if I botched this, it was going to hurt me quite badly mentally because these things are, pretty decent. Athearn Genesis is a pretty decent brand. So I found a prototype picture, which was this one. This is number 140. It's quite literally the same class of engine and everything. And I went and started getting to work. So this is what number 17 looked like generally before the weathering job, and this is what it looked like when it was done. That right there. So this took work.
That's
folks.
like what life does to you right there. You're a nice, clean, fresh train on the left, and then life gets a hold to you, and then you come that dirty train over there on the right.
Man, honestly, man, this thing took some work, folks. To explain the process a little bit, I sprayed the whole thing down with white paint first to fade all of the colors on it to make it look like sun bleached. Then I went through and added, let's see, what did I add first? Oh yeah, I added all of the pen washing. I had to do every single bit of pen washing on this thing, which took an insane amount of time. And then after that, I went around and added all of the rust splots. So you can see all these little rust splotches all over the engine here and there. Then I added, after that, the weathering, which was done with an airbrush. So I then added all of the grime and the dirt to the bottom. And then at the end, folks, which I thought looked really cool, I got some more of that wash. And I went to the gas cap and I actually stroked the brush down the side of the tank, and it made it look like there was a fuel overflow on the tank, like when you're filling it up, and it leaves like that little grease stain of diesel down the side of the tank. And so here it is from the top. Also cool note, by the way, folks. I used a wash to create that little rubbery walkway surface that they have on top of the engine in the hood. So I got it up here and I also got it up there on the top. Turned out pretty good. I did that with a wash. I was pretty happy with that. I didn't think it was going to turn out well. Sooted the thing up to hell because it's supposed to be extremely old. And this is also the other side of the engine. This is my favorite side, me personally. I think this one's the coolest. Lots of rust, little bits and pieces of rust all over the place. And then let's see. Oh yeah, by the way, this is the side-by-side. This is what number 17 looked like before the process. It looked like number 420. That's what it looks like after the process as number 17 now weathered. And then finally, folks, I had to spend 40 minutes cleaning off the wheels because the wheels were covered in paint and it dried and everything, so I had to go get alcohol and wipe it off. But once I got done with it, the electrical current was up and running, and I was able to get it on the track and actually test it out and make sure that it still ran properly. And this was the picture I took of it on my little test layout. It's not a real layout. It's on a plastic table with some tracks and all of the Norfolk Southern engines sitting in the background behind it on their boxes. But that was my first ever attempt at weathering a locomotive, and I'm really happy with how this turned out. It looks photorealistic, so I was really impressed and really happy with the work. So this is the first locomotive ever done. I would say in my mind this is like A tier work, but there's a little bit more I can do to make it S tier. So I hope y'all enjoyed that little walkthrough of what I had been doing for the past hours that I had before this show and the last one, well, in between the last show and this one. And I hope y'all enjoy my little foray into weathering and modeling with the Enforcer. And so with that, it is time for us to move on and into the next one.
Do you know what loving trains says about a person? Do you know what it really means psychologically?
What does it mean?
Everybody likes to joke about it, and they'll say, "Oh, it indicates you have a particular type of mindset, or you're like wired a certain way." But what it says about a person is they crave stability. That's what it means psychologically, because trains only go on the tracks. They don't go anywhere but the tracks. You already know where the train can go, how fast it can go, and there's preset everything because a train can only run a certain way on a track, no matter which way it's going. So it indicates you need stability, and you're craving stability. It also indicates a certain level of boredom too, because sitting in a train cab is not exactly what you'd call exhilarating work to a large degree. It's just kind of sitting there and just sort of looking out the window a little bit and changing the speed of the thing. So that's what it means.
Do you know what the hell a pilot or an 18-wheeler driver does most of the day? It's the same thing.
There's a lot more that can happen with that. You can have a lunatic driver. You could have road rage. You could have pulling off at the gas station at a different spot. Like it's a little bit uncertain, a little bit more uncertain.
No. Bro, you can run over somebody with a train. I mean, like, people can get on the tracks with their cars or their trucks, or you could derail. I mean, there's a lot of stuff
But
that
you don't have
goes
a
on.
choice. I mean, you can't stop the train to avoid it. You're just going to hit them.
But yeah, you don't really have a choice in the 18-wheeler either. If, like, some full
Sure you
brake
can.
checks you in an 18-wheeler, you're kind of ramming them.
You can swerve a truck. You can't swerve a train. I hadn't seen that before.
Swerve a truck. Oh man, bro, like man, for trying to come up with some psychological answer for liking trains. Folks, I got something for people who like cars. They're very wiry people, jittery people, too anxious for their own good. They can't sit
Facts.
in one place and just enjoy something or just
Oh
enjoy
no,
like
no,
beautiful
no lie.
scene.
You know the car people.
I know the car people real well. Like I know them exceptionally well. And I know the plane people well too. And the plane people are a lot like train people because when you actually know, folks, what pilots do, what they do is they taxi on the ground on the airport, they take off, and after they reach a certain altitude, the autopilot's turned on, and they sit back and kind of do nothing for most of the flight. And then when the aircraft finally gets into the ATC control zone of the next airport, then they finally take it out of autopilot and then landed. So they basically do like a pilot does as little to less than what an engineer does on a train. I mean, at least an engineer actually gets to control the throttle the entire time. A pilot turns on the autopilot, and the autopilot does it for them for most of the flight after they take off and before they land. So not really a lot going on there. But anyways, with that, it is time for us to get on and into the next one.
So our next one here goes to none other than Truck and Chef, who puts in a 10. And thank you, Truck and Chef, as well. He said, "Good evening, Enforcers. I found it, and I looked this up. The FB014 mobile launch system in a container strapped to a truck 6 days ago on OSINT Technical, and it looks really cool, and America needs that stuff."
Let's take a look. Let's take a look at this. Only necessary cookies. Thank you. Thank you. What do we got here? Oh, it's a man cat with a container on the back of it that launches drones.
That's pretty cool.
I wish we could show the clip. I don't know if Ryan Mattel would be okay with us showing that.
Oh, I wouldn't do that.
That's what I was thinking. Like, man, that's what I was thinking. Like, that's what I was saying. That, but beyond that, though, it does look pretty cool. I wish we had known to look for this yesterday because that is really neat. Look, it even has a little exhaust port for the exhaust of the engine that fires the drone out of the container. That is actually really cool. And I gotta thank you so much for the support and sharing that with us, Truck and Chef, so that way we can take a little look at this thing. Maybe we do need some of these actually. We probably need a lot of this, actually, because I don't think we have anything close to this in the military. I wonder how much that costs, though. It hopefully would be cheap, because if it's not...
Oh, I heard a rumor today that the U.S. Army was disbanding the drone assault unit that they had created, to experiment with how drones would be used on the front lines in the U.S. military, like the Army context. I heard they disbanded that today.
Man, and you said last week, man, well, I mean, they're working on it. I was like, not really. Like, I was like, not really. And you're like, but they had the drone
I've
unit
been
in Germany.
saying I've been saying they're behind, though. They're very behind, but that's not a good sign. If that's true, if they actually disbanded the unit, which I heard that, but I wasn't able to verify it concretely. Maybe somebody can let me know if that's concretely verified or not. I could look it up in a minute too. But if that is true, that's definitely a big step back.
Definitely is, but nothing unheard of these days. We need to create a big battleship. It costs as much as an aircraft carrier can only do about a quarter of what a carrier can do. Great work, everyone. High five. Bomb Beach Breakfast Club, like nothing ever before. But anyways, a big thing.
Oh yeah, here it is. Here it is right here. It's Wall Street Journal. It looks like it says exclusive new drone unit to be phased out as Hexas Army pick makes his mark. Let's see here. Yeah, so that's pretty stupid right there. It said the Army took a major step to prepare for wars of the future in January when it established a new battalion in Europe to master the art of fighting with drones and ground robots. And then you got to pay to read the rest of the article, so the rest of the details are hidden behind a paywall, unfortunately. But if that headline tells the whole story, that's certainly not good.
Man, well, it sounds to me like it probably is because, nowadays I don't really expect a whole lot. So whenever I hear something that's negative like that, it's probably the case that it is negative, bad news, not good news. Like they disbanded it and then they created a new one that's even bigger and more well funded. Like, I don't know if y'all heard, but apparently, they're now trying to work on getting the only virgin forest really left in the United States under the Forestry Service open for timber cutting. It's been completely untouched for centuries. Nobody's touched it or chopped any of it down in Alaska. And now, right now, the U.S. government is trying to actually work on opening up all that land for all of the timber companies to come in and start clear cutting it. So, whenever I hear stuff these days about the U.S. government, I really don't have a lot of positive thoughts because they're usually doing things that are destructive in every way. So, with that,
Also, the AI overview right here about the whole thing, I'm not sure if the AI overview is accurate, but it says here part of the broader WSJ report on shifting defense priorities under the new administration leadership to refocus specialized experimental groups on traditional warfighting readiness. Now,
oh
obviously,
my
I can't
God.
read the article. I can't read the article itself; as it's behind a paywall, so I don't know if that AI overview is completely accurate. But if it is accurate, and that is actually what the article says in it behind the paywall, then that's the most stupid thing I've ever heard. That could be. I mean, if that's the actual decision they're making, that shows incompetence to a degree. It's almost unfathomable to a large degree, like hard to even understand, like levels of incompetence like that. I mean, for anybody to look at the situation going on in Ukraine, the Middle East, Russia, anywhere else, even in China, where they're developing, drone ships to like launch drones from in mass numbers. And if somebody decides, let's cut the program to develop drones, I mean, that almost seems like sabotage.
Well, I mean, do you really expect them to have any sense when they did this?
Whatever came of that.
It's still in the works. They're still trying to figure out how to actually make that work. Even as the Navy is still saying, "Hey, this is like a dumb idea. Like maybe we want to do something else instead that works." No, we have to have it. It has to be a big battleship. It's also the same kind of a move that has them trying to move the entire sail of the Gerald R. 4 class carriers closer to the center area of the deck to make them look like a World War II class aircraft, World War II era aircraft carrier instead of a modern one. Kind of same thinking. It's just stupidity emphasized over actual function. It's getting ridiculous at this point, folks. I mean, anyone who tries to defend it is some sort of a stooge, a clown, or a fool. Might be all three of them, but it's getting to the point that the stupidity is so bad it's impossible to not say that it's just absolutely stupid and brain dead at this point. What's going on? And we've tried our best, folks, for a year and a half to see a lot of stupid decisions on top of each other and go, it's maybe there's a point to it. Maybe there's some we don't know. But after a year and a half of it or more, I can't really take it much more. I just gotta kind of tell you all the truth. This is just getting absolutely stupid.
It's like if the Ringling Bros like took over the government and they were like trying to like run the military. It's like the Circus Brothers like trying to run the whole operation where they got the elephants on the little ball like rolling around and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
people jumping through hoops. It's like would you put the Ringling Bros in charge of something serious like the whole national security? Probably not. Like the people selling hot dogs at the fair probably shouldn't be running, a country. Like and that's not even political. Like that has nothing to do with his political party. It has nothing to do with nothing. All it has to do with is if somebody is clearly showing that they're not like up to the job. It's like I hope people wake up to that. Like no matter who you vote for and what party you vote for, at least make sure they're competent. Like please, like I don't care who the hell you vote for in either party. Just make sure that they seem like they know what they're doing, which I know is kind of hard to tell like without giving them a chance. But there's some indicators sometimes that are there that indicates they're probably not up to it.
I mean, with this guy in the last one, I mean, there were so many clear indicators you could just kind of tell. It's like you didn't really have to go, oh, maybe they need a shot. It's like, nah, you could tell. You could easily tell. I mean, like, look at the debates, how they went. It's like you could tell neither of them were a good pick. It's like pretty rough options all the way around. And it's like, why the hell didn't people change their votes in the primaries to pick different candidates? Beats me. I don't even know why. Like everyone was like, yeah, we're gonna support the crazy guys, like and let them all run in the elections and see how it goes. So the last administration, folks, had their own freak show that they had that was attached to the administration, and then the new administration came and said we're returning back to normal and replaced the old freak show with a totally new freak show with a different style. And it's like I'm honestly kind of tired of that. It's like I would really like it at this point, folks. I would love it to just see a whole bunch of people in official business suits and dresses that look like the blandest people ever, like they eat salads for every meal, running the government at this point, than I would clown shows in every single variety. I mean, like, if y'all look at any of the people who are in charge of a government office right now, you have a podcaster who's in charge of the internal bureaus of investigation. You have one guy who's in charge of the entire Department of Defense, who basically is a podcaster dude, news reporter guy who just focuses more on his looks than anything else, so very vapid. You got another guy who can hardly talk, and he's running the entire department. That's like, how in the world can people say that these are the good picks?
I mean, there's nothing wrong with him having a speech impediment, but I mean, I would say, in my opinion, I think if you're put into a position like the health position, you should have an MD. I think that should be like a requirement, like person. I don't think it's an actual written in stone requirement necessarily to have an MD for that position. I don't think it is, but it seems like you'd pick somebody that has like medical experience, behind them instead of somebody that just, is somebody you want to pick.
Or somebody who just, says stuff like they all do, and they really don't know what they're talking about, which would, be something. Also, I see, I also, by the way, I wasn't trying to say that the speech impediment was a problem. I was more so trying to get that in to reference all of the crazy stuff, like, eating fries is healthy as long as it's cooked with tallow, or, certain kinds of medications or things are not that great, things like that. Things that kind of just go against conventional wisdom and sense, or knowledge, more so, just for the hell of it. I'll still say this, folks, because this is a common sense sort of a statement here. If you eat a French fry, it doesn't matter whether it's cooked in vegetable oil or tallow, you're eating a fried potato. That is not healthy at all. It doesn't matter what you cook it in. You eat enough of those, that's just going to be unhealthy. There's no way you can try and say, put tallow on the fries, it's going to be healthy. That's like saying, if I go and get this grease ball and I put a piece of lettuce on top of it, it's going to be healthy now. It's like, it's still a grease ball, it just has some lettuce on top of it. That's still very unhealthy. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one here is going to go to none other than Marc-Andre Burnett, who puts in a $10 support. And thank you very much, Mark, for that 10 right there. He did not leave a comment, but we do appreciate all that support right there in that super chat. And we also had a $10 support from James Dunn, who said, I'm just curious if Russia troops have been dying faster than they can recruit them. And do we know how many are in their army? And also, how long until they start not being able to man the front lines?
From what we know, according to the Ukrainians, they're currently in a manpower bleed. It's not a lot, though. I think it's like only a few thousand a month, but it's still a manpower bleed where they're not able to replace the losses they're taking, and they've been in that state for some time now, a couple of months. But we do not know if they're going to be able to turn that around and what it looks like currently. That was the last report, and I believe that was from 2 months ago. And that might have been a temporary thing, and they might have been able to keep it stable. Not entirely sure on that. But I hope that does address that the best I possibly can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Star, and thank you, Star, as well, for that $10 support. And Star said, guess who's back, fellas? He said something else, though, but he said, that's right, me. That's right. Guess who's back, bitches? It's me, the big one, the big fella. They call him the big guy. They push it up to the top, sir. I'm here with a message for the troops. The troops, we love those troops. Look at, they're so cute out there in their uniforms, those troops. Quit being such little bitches. Get back out there. Thank you for your attention to this matter. I don't give a shit if you're paying attention. It's just something that I have to say. I have to get it off my chest. It's been on my chest for a long time. Sir, I'm back, bitches, sir.
I'm back, bitches! Turn up! 420, 69, 67, 67. We're here to make the government great. That's why I've selected my menagerie of clowns to run the government.
It's okay to cuss if it's in somebody else's voice.
Exactly. It's amazing. It's now PG. What do you know? It's incredible. PG. Parental guidance. That's what that means. And guide them. That's right. I'm going to guide the whole country like a guiding parent, one that's lost their mind. And we're going to pick a whole bunch of clowns to run the government. It's going to be beautiful. We're going to have some guy who knows nothing about the military run the military. All he's got is a little bit of service in the National Guard, but it's okay. You'll get everyone on high tea. That's wonderful. We'll also make sure that the Secretary of Health is absolutely out of his mind. Born out of his gourd. He will be doing nutty shit the whole time. It's going to be great. It's going to be crazy. And in the meantime, I'm going to be just sticking my finger in the pie to screw everything up as much as I can. Want to build more carriers? No, let's build useless battleships. You want to fight a war successfully? No, no, no. My war plan, not yours. My plan's greater. You want to sit there and see that foreign policies run well? We're going to turn every single country that's our ally and enemy and keep our enemies enemies. Great idea, everyone. Great ideas. We have a million of them. I have a list of them here. We haven't even started yet. We're going to go to war with Cuba. We're going to invade Greenland. Might blow up Britain, maybe. We'll also go and possibly threaten Canada again. You know, maybe it's their time coming around again. Maybe even we'll start doing stuff internally. Possibly. You never know. You never know these days. Crazy stuff going on. Who are you? You low IQ individual. Sad little person. Okay, now that I get that out of my system, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Joppy, who puts in a 10. And thank you, Joppy, as well, for that $10 support right there. And I could have sworn Joppy left a comment. So let me go back up here and see if Joppy did leave that comment. Let's see here. I'm scrolling back up right now, looking for it. Here it is. And Joppy said, the U.S. keeps signaling not to support Europe, and Russia grows more desperate on a daily basis, and Iran is now targeting Europe, and it genuinely feels like the precipice of a full trigger for a world war.
And in a way, it kind of does. I would agree in a sense. But we'll have to. So unfortunately, we'll just have to see how everything goes these days. I hate to say that, but it's just a tough time around here. It's a tough time. It's hard to say where everything's going anymore, but it's still a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible. We wouldn't be able to keep it running. And it looks like we got a many of people ticked off. like, man, you report the news. We're out of the news. Well, this is the question segment. Y'all literally have been sitting around in the question segment.
All right. Okay. I'll report the news. You're banned.
Oh,
Brand news. Breaking news. Breaking news.
Breaking
You're banned.
news.
Oh,
Breaking news.
oh, whoa.
Oh man. Oh man. If you don't like the jokes, that's okay. That's okay. But saying report the news is stupid. Why don't you go back to bitching and moaning all the time? Well, you're already doing that. So why don't you stop doing that? But anyway, so that we're on the next one.
We also have here a $10 support from Andrew Honeycutt. And thank you very much, Andrew, for the 10. He said, I grew up learning about history and the nuance contained within. Fascists were bad, and we fought against them. Should we stand for a leader who imitates the same behavior and LSA all the way? Well, I mean, in the United States, if they vote them in, if they vote somebody in who shows qualities like that, it's the will of the people. So, and that's the danger of democracy. I'm not saying I'm against democracy, by the way. Obviously, I support democracy 100%. But that's one of the pitfalls of democracy. At the end of the day, if the people are the ones making decisions like who gets in, and then they're like, "Oh, we like this guy who's a fascist," it's like, well, technically, they can just vote in a fascist, and that's the end of it. You just got to hope and pray they don't ruin the whole thing in the process.
I mean, that's honestly true, but the way I look at it, folks, is that there's three ways of doing things here in the world in the modern day. There's the fascist way, there's the communist way, and then there's the American way. The American way is completely divorced from any concept of communism or fascism. And I don't really support anybody who goes down the communist path or the fascist path, because it is un-American, in my opinion. It completely goes against the principles of this country, which are unique in their own right from the other defining principles of the world, which are communism and fascism. And I don't think that we should ever really support anybody who's trying to advocate for some form of authoritarianism, because at the end of it all, folks, communism and fascism become the same thing. The government runs the country with an iron fist, and the people are treated like absolute garbage. That's basically what both of them turn into. If you actually look, folks, at the daily life of someone in the Stalinist era of the Soviet Union or in Nazi Germany, it was basically the same quality of life. Both of them were terrified, the citizens were, to criticize their government, to want better, to stick their head up a little bit high and dream big, because the government would come down and kill them. And that's not a kind of a country that I'd want to live in. And I don't really like people who even make it seem like they would align with those sorts of philosophies, because those people and their thoughts are dangerous to this nation and its continuation of remaining American, which it has for 250 years, and it should remain. So a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep it running. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next super chat here is going to go to none other than the Menage, who put in a 10, who said, maybe there's something I'm not understanding, but what, if anything, do we have to gain from North Korea? Last time I checked, I thought they were only exporting wigs and eyelashes. And take one from the chat. And we literally have nothing to gain from butting up with North Korea. Literally nothing to gain out of it. I mean, North Korea is supplying Russia with weapons. They're good friends with China. North Korea is like one of the worst possible Axis powers that exists in the modern day. So the only reason that they'd be wanting to suddenly chum up with North Korea is to simply get a new photo with Kim Jong Un to claim a victory for political purposes. That's pretty much the only reason they would be wanting to do stuff like that. Because North Korea is not going to. There's no hope of North Korea changing. They're not going to like start unifying with the West. That's just simply not the way their society is set up. So it's embarrassing too. It's like this guy. I mean, the North Korean governments are murderers. I mean, these people are straight up murderers. They just like butcher people. They did who knows what to that poor kid that went over there to North Korea and ripped the poster off the hotel wall. Who knows what the hell they did to him in private? Some horrible stuff. He came back, basically a vegetable to a large degree, which is horrendous, and then died. So I don't understand what they're thinking really. Like to want to associate with a country like that is obviously indicative of poor decision making. But Enforcer, what say you?
Well, he also likes to associate with people that run police states as well. So, not really off of the cuff at this point anymore. It's like Xi Jinping takes a little visit here to America, or he takes a visit to China, and now we're having greater relations with them. It's like they're an enemy of the Republic. What are we doing? Like, we should be cutting down our relations with them. It's like they're an adversary, but no, we're actually growing them. That kind of stupidity. The real answer is that the current guy in charge loves to think of himself a lot like these people and wants to kind of be like them. So he likes to go around and try and take pictures with them. That's why Putin went to Alaska with that last year. That's why he went to Beijing to go meet Xi. And that's also why he's trying to meet Kim Jong-un once again. Notice how he never really feels honored or incredibly privileged, or for that matter, he doesn't go out of his way to really try and meet leaders from Western countries. It's only the enemies of the Republic. That kind of paints a picture that is quite clear and obvious, really, when you think about it. Because it's like, have we ever heard him clawing for a talk with, say, the leader, the chancellor of Germany, or the president of France, or, for example, the prime minister of Japan? It's like, are those meetings that are highly sought after and he's excited for and everything? It's more like, oh, well, we have to meet with him. But when it comes to any of these people, they'll go out of their way to try and make room in the schedule and do things that have never been done before to go try and meet them. That clearly paints the picture as to what's going on with that, I think. But a big thanks to your support and help with the channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
I also have a 10 from Keith Sires, and thank you, Keith, as well, for the 10. He said, what's the situation between Russia and Japan, and what is your thoughts? And long live the Leaf Spring Army.
I don't know what's going on with Russia, because the Japanese have really kind of done nothing for the past 80 years since the end of the Second World War, because they haven't been able to because of their constitution, and now the Russians are trying to instigate them for some reason.
It's on behalf of North Korea.
Oh yeah, you are right. Yeah, the North Koreans hate the Japanese. That probably is the reason. Matthew, what is your theory on that? Since you actually hit that on the nail there, what was your theory on it?
My theory is North Korea is giving a whole bunch of aid to Russia, and part of the agreement is North Korea phoned up the Putin regime and said, "Hey, can you like go over here and knock Japan around a little bit? They're pissing us off. Like, can you go over here and do a little stuff to them so that way we can have some plausible deniability?" And of course, Putin's regime probably obliged that 100% because they love the support they're getting from North Korea. So it's basically like stronger bonding between the two nations. They're just doing that to mess with Japan.
I think so. I would agree with you on that. So that's the answer. And so I hope that does address that well. And also, with that, I saw someone say something. I'm chomping at the bits, but I'm not gonna say something at it. It's just a question, because someone said, "Well, there was no better option for president. Would the other alternative be doing good?" But there was an option. There were primaries. Like, the final candidates didn't have to be the final candidates. There were well, not in the one party, because they, like, the sitting president at the time wanted to run again, so they foolishly let that happen in that party. But in one party, there was actually a primary, and people could have primaried. Like, if you didn't like the other option, and you didn't like the option that we have in the office right now, you could have put your vote in for a primary for a different person to be the candidate for that party, and nobody did. And that could have completely changed the equation. Like, people always say there isn't an option. There always is an option. I mean, the party primaries give you the option in a sense, like, people can say that it is or isn't, but in a sense, it gives you the option to be able to pick different people than the ones that finally run as the Republican and Democrat candidate. So when you look at the Republican and Democrat candidate and say there's not really any good picks there, that isn't really the fault of just the system. Like, oops, well, that is what it is. It's really the failing of the people who voted in those primaries to vote in the quite literal worst options on both sides and basically give everyone bad takes as far as what they can vote for in the final presidential election. So with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a $20 support from Ross. And thank you very much, Ross, for that support. And also, sorry for missing that, by the way. I must have been yapping when that came in and missed it. But thank you very much, Ross, for the 20 Australian. He said, check out the Bangkok to Kanchanaburi train in Thailand. It takes you past the River Kwai and the nearby Hellfire Pass. Now, I know about the River Kwai. That's where Jeremy Clarkson and the Top Gear trio tried to build a bridge over, I think. And that was a good episode. Wasn't that the River Kwai?
Yeah, I think so. I think it also turned into a big scandal. Like for a
Like
reason.
everything.
Yeah, like he punched an Irish guy, man. Oh man, but beyond that, oh man, but man, that was a really interesting episode, though. I thought that one was a good one myself.
Yeah, I miss that old Top Gear. I miss it.
Yeah, they were a lot younger then too, filled with vigor and drive, and then it all came to an end when there was an allegation that one of them punched an Irish guy at a hotel because he brought a piece of food cold or something like that. I think it was the story. But beyond that, though, I've never heard of this train. I've never heard of it once because it's outside of the United States. But that looks scary. I don't know if I want to ride that one. Like, I don't think this thing is safety rated. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, I wouldn't be on that one.
Yeah, I don't think this thing. Wait, is that the inside? Yeah, I wouldn't ride. This just isn't my. Man, real. Like, man, it looks kind of neat. Like, it goes through a cool area of the country, but the quality of the train, though, it's scurring me. It feels like the U.S.'s railroads in like the 1960s when they were all kind of almost going bankrupt, because of the government and everything and what they were doing with the railroads. It feels like that's kind of like the time that this railroad's in, and those were scary times. But I do thank you greatly for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Joe Hobo who said, I miss excuse me, I miss your Bernie impression, aka Vermont man. Can you give us an update on the 1%?
The top 1% of this country still own half of this country's wealth. We need equal distribution of the wealth. We need to do something that's absolutely revolutionary. Let me tell you something. Back when I was the mayor of Montpelier, we used to do absolutely crazy stuff. I would go to my summer home and I would think about it, and then I'd go to my winter home. Man, like, and then I'd think about it there too.
Well, doesn't everybody have 3 homes?
Of course, every average working American has 3 homes, man. I mean, that's just standard fare.
Yeah, I mean, 3 homes should be a minimum.
Man, we need to start playing the world's smallest violin. Man, like, it's like, damn, we're kind of falling below that. Come on, everyone, we need to get our 3 homes, as every American has. But anyways, with that, big thanks to your support and helping this channel to keep it running. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to Joe Hobo, puts in the 7, who said, have you considered a trolley setup like in Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood?
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Not really. I'm more so trying to go for like a photorealistic layout. That's also why the engine was weathered photorealistically, to try and make it look as real as it possibly could be. So that way when I build a layout, it will all look like it does in real life. Like, my idea for a layout is, it is basically just a miniaturized version of the real world, and everything about it is going to look as close to realistic as possible. So the trolley layout, it's really neat and quaint, and I think it's really cool, and Mr. Rogers is like the GOAT, but I wouldn't do it myself. But a big thanks to your support and helping this channel to keep it running, and with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a $5 support from K.I., who said B-1 bombers playing outside in Gloucester, UK yesterday. It was good to see a crazy plane, and can we deep dive down the rabbit hole as I did?
Well, we can. I don't know what just cracked in my mouth right there when I said can, like something popped like a bone, but we'll figure that out later. The B-1 Lancer, an amazing aircraft. It was designed with a very interesting premise in mind. The B-1 Lancer would fly at high speeds over the speed of sound at high altitudes to make it towards its target, and the wings would be swept back while it was doing that. But once it got close to the target, or within radar range of the Soviet Union, it would then rapidly drop altitude and speed, basically down the treetop level, extending the wings out to allow for better control at those subsonic speeds, and it would then speed through the Soviet Union, undetected by radar because it's flying below them, and then make it to its target, pop up, drop its ordnance, and then pop back down and hopefully get out of there before the Soviet Air Force was able to see him. Really cool strategy. Never really got to be used, though, because the B-1 Lancer came around basically at the latter end of the Cold War, and of course the Cold War never went hot. But it was still a really cool bomber, and it's received a lot of modernizations and updates, a lot like the B-52 Stratofortress has, to keep it viable in the modern battlefield. So largely it's just become a large missile bus at this point. We send them in to drop off missiles at this point from hundreds of miles away most of the time. But in some other cases, we actually have used these things recently for precision bombings because they do have an ability to drop precision bombs and also laze their own targets with a laser, which means that they can actually guide bombs into target. And we have seen that in the Iran war, that was actually done a couple of times with the B-1 Lancer, where they would laze up targets and actually strike them with GBUs instead of any form of a missile like a JASSM or something along those lines. So a short rabbit hole in the B-1 Lancer right there for you, wrapped up in a little bow and presented right to you. I hope that was exactly what you were looking for. And these things are really cool. I like the B-1 Lancer for its looks. And also, I gotta say, the XB-70 Valkyrie was the coolest bomber that we ever made that never flew. Never flew in service. It did fly as a prototype. Such a sad thing. Have you ever heard about this thing, Matthew, the XB-70?
I have heard about it a little bit.
Man, this thing was so cool. It was so freaking neat. And then they destroyed they destroyed the prototype in an accident, and they completely shelved it afterwards because it would be too expensive to rebuild a prototype. Absolute shame. Hate that happened. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a $10 support from Game Theory, and thank you, Game Theory, for that support right there. And he's got another so-called pickup line. He said, man, I have a pickup line for you. And I don't know why Game Theory keeps doing this. I don't know why Game Theory thinks a certain thing about me, apparently. But they said, the pickup line for you, I know the missionary handbook says eyes on the work, but putting your post-mission contact on a pass-along card totally counts toward your service hours. Now, who would that be aimed at? I wonder. I've never been a pickup line person. Like, I've never been a pickup line person, like, pretty much ever. I've never needed that personally. I've just sort of gotten along without all that stuff right there. But that's not a bad one, though, if you're into that kind of stuff. But Enforcer, what say you?
That was very interesting. We thank you for the reading. But anyways, a big thanks to you for the support. Thank you for the letter. With that, a big thanks to you once again for the support. And we are on to the next one.
Man, I'll let Game Theory give that a go right there. You can come out here and try to get a few baddies or something. But anyways, though, going into our next one here, this one goes to Mark Andre Burnett, who puts in a $6 support. And thank you very much, Mark, for that 6. And we do appreciate that.
Wait.
And you did not leave a comment. Say what?
I just came up with one. Girl, are you related to Joseph Smith? Because it looks like you about to take me to the promised land.
That might get you a charge. That might get you a charge.
Oh man, I had to add in.
Who really even uses pickup lines though? I mean, does anybody actually use that? I mean, I've of course, like, I know all the jokes and stuff like that, but it's like, does people actually use that stuff? Like, I mean, I've never personally used that stuff personally.
I think it used to be a thing. I don't really think it's a thing anymore in our generation because me personally, I've never done that. Usually folks, these days you say, hey, you want to like go like get a coffee, or you like want to like go hang out and do something, something like that. Like, you don't sit there and go, girl, you look like a lemonade on a hot summer day. Absolutely refreshing. You just don't do that. Like, it's just
that's like for people that are trying to fool around or something like that. It's like for people, that's not for people that are like looking for a legitimate relationship. Those people are like looking to fool around or something. I think like that's like, I don't know. Like, that's, if I saw somebody I liked, I would not walk up and throw a line like that out. Certainly not. I think that would put the wrong idea out there.
I mean, really, man, it's like, I just, oh man, it's like the delivery too. It's like, is like basically you have to lean into that's a corny ass joke, and honestly, a lot of people don't really like corny jokes. Not that I know any. It's like, it's like, so I personally never use those. And I also want to say I hope not. They're cringe. Honestly, I mean, like that's what I think. Like I've never used a pickup line before. And I've done quite fine with not doing that. So tip for the wise: don't do that. Like, don't ever use a pickup line. Pickup lines are canned and cliche, and they don't go off well. Like, you need to just be like normal and chit chat and stuff. And if you think they're neat or they're nice, ask them to like go get a coffee or something, just kind of hang out with them and get to know them a little. Because also on top of that, folks, it's like you might like someone and then you trying to get to know them a little bit, and they got more red flags than the Soviet Union, and then you kind of need to know that. Like, it's like you need to know that, so you kind of want to hang out and talk to them a little bit. Otherwise, it could end in disaster. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
Yeah, I'll tell you. But moving on to our next one here. This one goes to Alf Hednar. He puts in a 5. He said, "Can we go through what was asked on the survey that the U.S. sent to NATO? And nothing says loyalty to us, like like having to get on your knees, the entitlement and hubris."
Get on your knees and pray low. Yeah, but beyond that though, I would say we don't know. Actually, I don't think we ever heard any country say exactly what was on it. We just were able to hear that they got it. But I assume it's stuff like, do you agree with the president's domestic policies? Because in the modern days, we all know foreign policy and domestic politics are actually intertwined. For some reason, Germany has to agree at a national level with all the domestic political stuff we do. And if you don't, then there's problems. Apparently, that's how it works these days. That's not how it actually works, by the way, folks. That's not how it's supposed to work at all. But we believe it's probably just questions of, do you love the president? Do you agree with the president? Do you swear loyalty to the president? Otherwise, we're moving our troops out. And in the reality of it, no matter what the answer, if they answer, yes, we love the president, he'll pull the troops out anyways. We've already seen that it doesn't matter what the hell you do. He'll still do whatever the hell he wants. So I hope that does address it the best I can. And a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep it running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a $20 support from Ross once again, and thank you very much, Ross, for the 20 Australian, the second support. And we do appreciate that. He said, "Hey Matt, and something for you. Check out the 2014 Chevrolet SS, which is an Australian-made muscle car. That's pretty cool right there. Also, by the way, Ross, I do know that there's a version of this vehicle right here, the Chevrolet SS, that's actually known as a Holden in Australia. It's like a car brand over there. Ross knows about it. He's Australian, probably. I'm speaking from an American standpoint, thinking he doesn't know anything about it. He probably knows exactly what a Holden is because he's Australian. But it's like the same type of looking car. Like, it looks like that one. But he said it was sold in the U.S. and they even raced it to win at the NASCAR Sprint Cup. And that is true. It just has a nice V8 in it, this thing right here. I've never really been a huge fan of the design. It kind of looks like an Impala a little bit to me, but the engine's pretty nice. Like, it's a nice V8. And also, I like those Holdens that y'all have in Australia. That, like, the Australian version of this car right here. I like those. Have you ever seen those, by the way?
I don't think I have. What's it called again?
It's called a Holden.
What year?
I just punch in Holden and it'll pull it up. I think they only have like a handful of models.
These.
Yeah, that's it. See, look, it looks identical.
It kind of does, actually. Yeah, it does.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Boy, I
Don't
hate
you
cars.
like it?
Oh, boy, I hate cars, folks. I can't stand cars. Man, if people tell me more about cars, I'm going to lose it. Oh, boy. But honestly, it doesn't look too bad.
It's not too bad, but it's not my thing.
Nah, not really my style either. You know what's more my style? The Holden Special. Damn, that thing is special. Look at that thing. Man, I've never heard of this thing in my life. What is this?
Oh, wait a minute. Ross said GM has retired the Holden brand. I hadn't heard about that. I thought they were still around.
Boy, this thing's very bubbly.
Yeah. My favorite old car of all time, though, BMW E30 M3, fantastic. Like, if I could have a car, like that car is just like class to me. Like, it's just like pure class. Look at that red one right there. Pure class, that right there. And I would drive that around every single day if I could get my hands on one. But these things right here cost as much as like a high-end like luxury car these days.
Man, if I could ever have something that I wanted, I would have an EMD F7. Streamline perfection.
Yeah, you can drive that to the store for sure.
Man, you can straight to the liquor store. Man, you just drive this thing down the street on your way to the liquor store. Man, no one's getting in your way. You can't be pulled over for drunk driving either.
You probably could.
No, I doubt it. Watch someone try and pit this bad boy. Like, man, no one's pitting this thing. You ain't getting pulled over. But let's see. What other good ones do we have here? Let's see. Oh, this Rio Grande. Oh, beautiful. That yellow, orangish color. That black stripe and the white bottom. Goodness. That Boston and Maine. Holy smokes. The electromotive demonstrators didn't look that good. The Great Northern. Oh, goodness. Beautiful stuff. But anyways, with that, it is time for us to move on and into the next one.
And our next super chat here goes to none other than, let's see here, it goes to Cooper Belt, who puts in a 5. And thank you, good sir, as well. He said, I heard that someone, let's see here. I don't know what that means right there. So I'm going to have to skip on that one, but thank you for the support. Let's have a 5 from none other than Ashton, who said, I guarantee the next president, regardless of political affiliation, will pull troops out of the strait regardless of consequences.
I don't know, because you would think that kind of, but at the same time, though, if they did that and it was destructive to the United States, considering that they will definitely be listening to their advisors are going to be telling them it's going to most likely destroy the U.S. economically, so we have to stay there. So that might end up being the case, but might not be at the same time. But a big thanks to you for your support. I hope that has addressed that well. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 5 from Emu Overlord, who said, we named a swimming pool after Harold Holt, our PM that vanished on a swim, LMAO.
Oh, yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. Yeah, I forgot about that. Nobody cared, and then you named a swimming pool after him. It's like, man, that is macabre. That would be like naming like a rifle range here in the United States, the Abraham Lincoln Rifle and Pistol Range. You know, it's like, that seems very like messed up, honestly, when you think about it. But anyways, a big thanks to you for your support, and I'm with this channel to keep it running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Ulf Hednar, who said it's sad that Kim didn't want the U.S. back. They could have really used one of those diets there. I hear it's so punishing that the fat just melts off. That's
Hey.
dark.
That's dark right there. But I do thank you for the support. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Mark Dixon, who left a $5 support, but I don't see a comment attached to it. But thank you very much, Mark, as always, for that support as well. And we also have a 5 from Nisi, who said a report is out there that Iran has lost significant control of the strait due to U.S. naval efforts. And a certain outlet's reporting that 10 million barrels per day of crude is going through LSA. And I call straight BS on that. I call straight BS on it. They're trying to get some favor, it sounds like.
Yeah, because it's kind of hard to say that there's 10 million barrels getting through the strait every day, because that's half of what the Middle East produces, which means that 60 ships would be getting through a day, just about. Where are those 60 ships? They're not in the strait. So where are
Well,
they?
they say it's a covert thing that they're doing where they're turning off their AIS transponders and they're going in the middle of the night. And they're saying that Iran has limited detection capabilities now, so they can't see them passing through. I mean, it sounds plausible, but it's like, where's the proof? Nobody will ever show any proof. They simply say, trust me, bro. It's like, I don't trust you, bro. So, we need some proof.
That's all BS, because you know why? Nobody out there yet on the internet has watched a ship sail up to the Gulf of Oman or anywhere in the area, turn off their transponder, and then magically reappear in the Persian Gulf, or vice versa. Never happened yet. Haven't seen that once.
Yeah.
And that tells us that story is BS. Also, we've seen a lot of people coming in tonight. Oh, so-and-so's reporting. I hate to tell y'all, but we don't really care what so-and-so is reporting. I don't mean that in a rude way, like everyone else doesn't know what they're talking about, but if someone else is reporting something, well, that's their report. What our report's working off of is what we have and what we know. So someone else might be telling you that the Islamic regime is going to collapse tomorrow, but they might be completely wrong, because a lot of people have been coming in here and saying we've been BSing on Iran, and so far we've been right, and other people haven't. So, it's like, if someone else is saying something contradictory to us, it's like, well, that's their thing. We're not going to change our whole coverage just because someone is contradicting us. They could be wrong. They may not have any proof to back up anything that they're saying. Because so far we haven't really seen that yet. But I do thank you for the support, Nissi, and helping this channel to keep it running. And long live the Lee Spring Army. And we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from thank you for your donation, and we do appreciate that. They said, why have a drone ground unit when you can have Space Force and Air Force AI drone swarm carriers?
You kind of still have to have ground forces for a larger extent, so then it kind of just makes sense to integrate the drones into the ground forces, or to create a separate branch that works alongside the ground forces like the Air Force, to be able to operate the drones, because the Space Force really wouldn't, especially in the way it's configured right now, the Space Force certainly wouldn't be able to handle modern drone warfare. They just don't have the personnel, the capabilities, or the structure or design to their forces to be able to do something like that. For now, they have a very different sort of a focalization or specialization really at this point. But a big thanks to you for your support and help with this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Game Theory. He said, where are the third spaces in Salt Lake City to meet people? Well, if you're looking to just meet people, I mean, you could just go like downtown to like the parks or something like that, or go to like a restaurant or something like that downtown. You could. It's just well, I won't say that because that's a little bit opposite violating there to say something like that. But you could go downtown for that. Yeah, there's places you can meet like that. You can go hiking, stuff like that. I mean, you can meet people doing that. I'll say though, like in the modern day, it's kind of hard to do that because a lot of people kind of like stay in their own world to a large degree doing that stuff. They're not really like super like it's just like after COVID, people sort of like got unsociable to a certain degree of like common spaces like that. So it's a little bit difficult. But if you're talking about dating, like I think dating apps is pretty much like the way most young people in our age bracket are meeting, if that's what you're wondering. But Enforcer, what say you?
Man, I'd say I wouldn't really know. Like I don't have to look around, so I don't really know what the places would be that you look in Salt Lake. But I do thank you for the support and help with this channel to keep running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a $20 support from Ross, and thank you, Ross, as well, for the 20, and we do appreciate that. He said Australia's population is largely along its extensive coastline, and while most locals are water-wise, we do have a lot of drownings, like 81 last summer, and naming a swim center after a drowned PM seems fitting.
I guess in a way, yeah, that would seem fitting. And it is really interesting, because I think the whole population of Australia, for the large part, it's like 90%, live in the area between Sydney and Melbourne. And the rest of the country has the remaining 10%. And so quite interesting population distribution in Australia. But then again, everyone's kind of living in the place that is not a desert, which is the rest of Australia. But a huge thanks to you for the support and sharing that with us, Ross. And a big thanks to you once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Game Theory, put in a 5, who said, I had a 2004 GTO in blue and was Australian made.
Oh, that's really cool. That's really neat, actually. I quite find that fascinating there. And a big thanks to your support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on the next one.
We also have a 2 from Anonymous, and thank you, Anonymous, as well, for the 2. I do not see a comment, but we do appreciate it. We also have a 2 from K4005, who said, imagine that the EU joins China, LSA, and UK.
I don't think the EU will ever join China, like become like a part of a Chinese sphere like they have with America, but I certainly do think that they might shift away from the United States so much that they become independent and then broker their position between the United States and China to get the best position possible for themselves. I think that is most likely the most realistic outcome, because I don't really think the Europeans are ever going to align with the Chinese, because while the Europeans don't say a great deal about China, Europe works a lot more off of, and to put it in a way, a moral compass when they make foreign policy decisions than we do. So they generally don't really like to align themselves with countries that conduct questionable actions inside of their own country, like say genocides and things like that. They generally are quite sensitive about those things, and China is kind of in that category of a country that they wouldn't associate with greatly because of that, but they might for economic purposes. But a big thanks to you for the support and help this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a $10 support from Barry Pies, and thank you as well for that support. They said, I overslept, but what do you, but that, let's see, wait a minute, hold on. But that what you do on holiday, I plan to cycle up Pilsko Mountain, and I will listen to video when cycling. And old German tractors are cool, and look up the Eicher and Guldner. I have Eicher L22.
Let me pull that up, actually. Let me, oh, I don't know what the hell. Sorry about that. If you could try and reset that super chat there, it just pasted it into the thing, man. Like, let me see if I can get rid of that here really quickly without deleting the whole spreadsheet. There we go.
Paste it into the thing. I don't even know what that means.
Man, I was trying to paste it onto the internet to try and find this tractor company here. Let me try and get that here really quickly because I'm still trying to get it. Let's see here. Let me get that. Copy. And let me go paste this. Let's go look at it. Let's look at it. Oh, these are cool. These are like the old John Deeres, actually. Like here's one of them right here. That's really cool, actually. I like that.
Oh yeah, yeah, that is pretty nice.
Yeah, it is really neat. You know, let me go pull up John Deere, the right to repair. Oh, like it's scary. Let me on that leg. Look at John Deere. Let me see if I can show you one of their earliest tractors. Let me see here. They got to have the history of the company, right? I mean, let's see. Well, dang. I mean, like, come on. They got to show the old tractors, right? I mean, that's like a whole part of their deal. Old tractor. Here we are. I always thought these old John Deere tractors were pretty cool looking. Particularly these. Like how simple they were, how small they were. Like they're tiny. Look at it.
Yeah, they really are, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, look at it. Look at this one. Or that one. I mean, they look quaint, really. Like they really do. They look really neat. Like you get that quaint idea of the old farm back in the day, back before mechanized agriculture really became what it is today. But still really, really neat to look at. And this reminds me a lot of that. It's just in a different color with a different wheel arrangement instead of like that tri-wheel layout as a quad layout. But still really cool. I think that's neat. And also sleeping in on a vacation, of course you got to. That's what you got to do. But a big thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to Game Theory, who put in a 10. And thank you, Game Theory, once again. They said, do you believe the religious reasons for the Ukraine invasion? And watched an interview of Putin talking about the history, religious reasons to take the Donbass back.
There is no such thing as religion in the modern Russian Federation. Religion is an extension of the government's authority in Russia, and it has been that way since the Soviet Union. And if you want to look at it in a true sense, it really any sort of religion in Russia has been an extension of the Tsar, and the religion bends around the will of whoever the leader is. So generally, no. There is no real religious reason, because also the Soviet Union was quite thorough in making state atheism a very heavily supported thing. And if you did have an open religious affiliation, you were discriminated against quite heavily. So there isn't really anything such as a traditional religious connection of any type going on in a region. And on top of that, that is not a reason to invade another country. Like if there's Muslims living in the United States, does that give a Muslim country a right to invade the United States and take our territories where the Muslims live to reunite them? That's kind of like the same philosophy Germany had on, we're going to reunite all the German-speaking people under one flag, so we have to annex all of this land to do it. And that doesn't really pan out. Really, in my opinion, it's a ridiculous notion. Because in the modern world, many countries, basically every country on the planet, except for a few, like Russia and China, for governmental control reasons, have moved far beyond the idea that there is really any religious sort of tension or issues going on. It's really each their own sort of a thing. It's in between that person and their God or whatever they believe it or don't believe in. And so the whole religiosity thing of trying to justify the Donbass invasion is just another false lead that the Russians are trying to put out to explain why they did it. The reality is they don't want Ukraine to join NATO, and they also want to try and bring back the Russian Empire. That's really the truth of it. And everything else that's said is just an attempt to give a fake justification for anything different than their actual real motive. So I hope that does address that the best I can. And a big thanks to you for your support and helping this channel to keep it running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Wee Little Turtles, who puts in a 5 and says, not much, but I wanted to send a little bit in appreciation, and food's expensive, and I wish I could do more, in mad respect.
And a big thanks to you for the support. And any support is great support, we little turtles. We greatly thank you for that. And we thank you incredibly for helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible. And so with that, we are on to the last super chat before we get on into the live chat. So what do we got, Matthew?
So this one goes to Andrew Honeycutt, who puts in a 2 and said, is Poodler's provocation working and ego-sparking World War III?
And kind of not really. It's more so their decision making. It's not really like a battle of the egos at this point because the U.S. is pretty much completely uninvolved in Europe. It's more so Europe trying to make sure that they're not going to get steamrolled by Putin if he tries to start a war. So In that sense, yeah, I guess he's, kind of winning and goading people into a conflict, but it's really one that's unavoidable at this point, at least from what we're seeing. So a big thanks to your support and help with this channel to keep it running. And with that, folks, it's time for us to get on into the Morse code decoders and some live chat questions, because we actually have some time to get to some before we run overtime. So Matthew, what do we got?
So tonight we had the entire roster of decoders. We had Paul, Kevin, Mason, Joni, Norm, Arabelle, let's see here, Heroic, Flubness, Kush, Crypteric, Sire, and Brian. And they said, Morse code says, man, you gotta go down to get the wild berries package. Oh, wait, no gas and it's gone. And LLT LSA.
And and that's the sound of money. Get it, folks? You got to go down the wild berries to get the package, but you got no gas to get there, and the wild berries have been burned down. What a tragedy. What a tragedy. But still, a big shout out to the Least Minor Cinema Corps for getting that correct time and time again. Y'all are always getting that correct, and we're always amazed with y'all's ability to get that down on the nail every single night. Truly impressive work right there. And with that in mind, it is now time for us to get on and into one more super chat before we get on into the live chat. So what do we got?
So this one goes to Ross, who puts in a 20 Australian. And thank you, Ross, as well, for the third support of the night. He said, unfortunately, you remember those crazy religious dudes blessing the cars in Russia a few weeks back? That was some crazy stuff. And were they Russian or some other ethnic group?
So they were Russian, and that is the Russian Orthodox Church. But the thing about it is that while they have a lot of, I guess you could say, practices or customs or traditions, if you want to call them that they do, a lot of them have a very governmental tint to them. Like, for example, in Russia, if the government says, and generally, just to say this really quickly as a broad overview thing, the teachings of Jesus Christ are generally one of peace. Like that's generally what it is. If someone slaps you, you just turn you turn the other cheek, sort of a deal. You forgive people more than they should be forgiven. And no one's perfect, and no one will ever be perfect, but that's okay, because as long as you believe in Him, you will be saved. And in Russia, that just kind of moves around however it wants. Like, it's like, oh, wars are terrible and we should take care of the needy. And then Russia starts the war in Ukraine. Ukrainians are dogs and they must die. Like, that's now the official position of the Russian Orthodox Church. It wasn't that way before the war. Now it is, because the government told them it was. That's how the church works in Russia. And when a church is that far perverted or corrupted, it isn't really a religion anymore, because a religion in our sense is the way we look at it here in America. It is devoid of the government, completely divorced from it, and the government is divorced from it. And so religion is what it is. Like, it's your relationship with your God, whether you're a Christian, a Muslim, a Jew, a Sikh, a Hindu, or anything. It's your religion with your God or your lack thereof, and that's entirely your thing and your way to believe. And you can have your own religious dogma and your own religious debates, even within your own religious group as a Christian or a Muslim and whatnot. And it's entirely devoid of the government, and the government has no say in it, and the religions are supposed to have no say in the government. In Russia, that's not the way it works. The religion is lock and step with the government, and the government tells the religion what to say and what to believe. And so that's why when I say that Russia really doesn't have any religiosity, it doesn't, because when you look at it that way, that's just it's not a religion. It's a fake way that the government in Russia is pretending that there's a religion, which is the Russian Orthodox Church, to extend further political and governmental influence over the people, with the disguise of it being a religious group, when it really is not. So I hope that addresses that the best I can. But that little thing was trying to bless the cars. There's kind of like a tradition like that in almost every religion, but it's to bless the cars to stop them from getting blown up, which doesn't really work too well in Ukraine. But a huge thanks to you for the support and help with this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a $5 support from Hot Pink Stickers, and thank you as well for that support right there. We do appreciate that. They said just a little something for you. I don't think I want to read the other part out.
Man, oh boy, like, look, man, we're in Vietnam. Man, how many dongs do I have to wave around here to get some service in this restaurant? Oh man, but I do thank you greatly for the support. Now with this channel to keep on running. And I gotta tell y'all folks, ever since I learned the name of that Vietnamese currency, it is something there. And so a huge thanks to you for support and help with this channel to keep on running. And also I just saw someone say Sharia law in America will never mesh. Well, duh. I mean, it's the First Amendment. Like, the First Amendment doesn't allow for religious laws. It's the same thing as saying like a Catholic government wouldn't work in America. It wouldn't, because of the First Amendment. Freedom, like the freedom of religion.
But there are places where they're trying to do that though, which is completely contrary to what America stands for.
But also, there, like, on the flip side, though, there are also people who try and instill Christian beliefs or Christian laws as kind of like the maxim in the same vein.
That's contrary too. I mean, the church and state are separate in America. So if you see like a city being formed that's just like just for Islamic people or just for Christian people, it's like that runs like completely contrary to what the U.S. even stands for.
Yeah, I mean, like who LFG to address that really quickly. Sharia law is completely against the First Amendment and the separation of church and state in the country. So as far as that is concerned, we're on the same page. But if a person wants to be a Muslim or a Jew or a Christian or a Sikh, that's entirely their personal decision. And however they believe in that faith and however they interact with other people of their faith and other faiths is entirely up to them. That's the position of the United States of America and has been for 250 years. But whenever anyone tries to say we're going to bring about a Christian nation with Christian laws, completely against the Constitution. We're going to bring about a Jewish nation with Jewish laws, completely against the Constitution. We're going to bring about a Muslim nation with Sharia law, completely against the Constitution. So I think in that regard, you and me are on the same page. But those sort of like when people are like, oh, it's coming to America, it's like, no. It's like some people might try, but that will get shot down because that is unconstitutional to implement religious laws as a municipal, state, or federal level sort of a system. It's just completely against the Constitution as it stands. So that's my personal look at it, and that's also why, folks, I'm not a big fan at all of promoting any religion in the government. Religion is for the individual, for the people. It's not supposed to be involved in governmental affairs. Those are two totally separate things. But with that, it is time for us to move on and into the next one.
We have one more from Game Theory put in a 5. It says, is it true that currently in the U.S., read months back, the general's praying to Jesus?
Yeah, actually, we did. And of course you can pray to whatever faith you want to believe in, but the thing is that you can't guide people in prayer. Like you can't, like if you're in a school setting, say, and you have you have 20 Christians in the class and you have 3 Jews and 2 Muslims, you can't be like, okay, everyone, we're all praying to God, the Christian God, and y'all are all gonna have to pray to him, like mandated. That's a complete abridgment of the First Amendment. That's also imposing religion and promoting religion from something of an official standpoint on other people. So if they're praying personally on their own, or they're leading soldiers in a prayer that are all Christians and they're not compelling or forcing other people of other religions to do it, then that's totally fine. But if they're having to force, or if they're forcing or compelling people of other faiths or a lack of faith to do that, then that's a violation of the First Amendment. So I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
This one goes to AF Kaplan, who said, how can Russia hope to start a war with NATO if they cannot reliably provide fuel for military assets?
They can scrounge it up, is the best way to put it. And that's hard to actually explain in a short way because we're kind of running low on time and I'm trying to think of a way to quickly explain it. They can redistribute resources unfairly to the military to be able to build up enough fuel for an offensive for a certain duration. But they still would largely be out of fuel inside of Russia, and they would be fighting that war from the standpoint of a dying nation economically at that point. So I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we're on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Rotos Opera, who said, have you heard of the code injection detected at U.S. water facilities similar to Stuxnet, reported yesterday on Defense? And we have heard of that, definitely so. Now, I will say there's a little bit of a difference here. Like injecting malicious code into like a industrial controller is a lot different than, for example, somebody gaining unauthorized access to it because it was using a default password. The recent incursions into some of these 7 states that were breached by Iranian hackers, it was simply because they were using default passwords. That's at least according to the FBI. They were using like password 12345, and that was really easy to like get into. You can just brute force that and get into that system and start messing up the controllers at municipal water facilities, which is obviously a bad thing to do. And that's apparently what the Iranian hackers were doing. But I've also heard those same reports right there that apparently they're like somehow breaking in through other means to some of these systems, some of these industrial controllers, and they're injecting like dormant malware, and they're leaving it dormant until they want to activate it, which means it's been compromised, permanently until they decide to act on it, which is disturbing. That's what China does. That's a very common common Chinese cyber tactic to do that, but that's a little bit more advanced when it comes to Iran. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would largely agree with that. It's quite concerning, and from what we know, it was done mostly at the municipal level. Last we had heard, and so I hope that does address it the best we can. I gotta say, folks, I don't like we don't get into religious comments like promoting one religion or another here on the channel, but the conversation of the separation of church and state in the chat, it's drawing me in. I want to get involved in it a lot, but we're kind of running low on time. But I saw someone say that forceful religion, and also I saw a section say you're fooling yourself, just wait until the numbers stack up, see how it's happening in the UK. But that in a sense is a failure at assimilation. Like, I believe as a premise, as a nation, that when people are applying or going through the process of citizenship, they have to assimilate to certain customs. They have to understand the laws and respect the laws, because generally in America, well, not generally, it is standard, it is in stone, basically. The law is supreme over everything. So if you're like a devout Muslim or a Christian or a Jew or anything, you're like, I just love this stuff and I want to turn America into a Muslim, a Christian, or a Jewish state. That is putting the religion above the primacy of the law, and that is completely against the premise of the United States of America. That's a failure to assimilate. And I would say that's generally what has happened in the UK, is that there was a failure to assimilate the citizens properly to have, or people becoming citizens, to have the idea that there is a freedom of religion and that the religion cannot be imposed on others. That's a failure of assimilation. And if a person shows in the process of citizenship or in the process of getting citizenship that they are not assimilating and that they're going to try and bring perversive values, as I would put them, into the United States of America to pervert the American system, then they should not be granted citizenship. That's how I look at it. Because they either get the system. Like, I'm not asking them to completely give up their religion, their culture, and everything else, but they have to understand the system and they have to work their religion and culture into the system. If they can't do that, then they can't be a citizen. That's how I look at it. But anyways, with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
We also have a super chat that goes to JS Ghost Sniper, who puts in a 10. And thank you, JS Ghost, for that support. He said, FYI, the Kosovo War was mainly ethnic, whole situation there with that. Yugoslav and Serbians fought a war in 98-99, and ethnic Albanians, Kosovo Liberation Army, NATO bombing campaign, plus troops maintained some peace.
The Balkans is especially in the 90s, is a brutal place. Really, honestly, a place that is devoid of any sense. It was a completely senseless slaughter by most all sides. And a tragedy, really. I really, whenever anyone talks about that, and having researched a little bit, I can't even really find any sense in what anyone was doing, because it was really just a lot of fear and pandemonium that would drive different groups, cultural, religious, or anything in between, to just conduct heinous acts and atrocities against each other on something that didn't even actually happen. It's just something they thought happened or they thought was going to happen, and they would go and act on brutality as a result. Really brutal stuff that happened down there. But a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, and I hope that does address that well. And with that, we also
have one more super chat, by the way, which goes to Game Theory, who puts in a 5. And thank you, Game Theory, once more for that support. They say, question for tomorrow, asking about third spaces of Alabama. And there really are none, honestly. Like, when young people like graduate from high school in Alabama, they go to either Tuscaloosa, which is the University of Alabama, or they go to Auburn. That's where most young people go. So unless you're going to either one of those places, there's not a whole bunch of meeting places for young people. At least in my experience, there were a few, but I just wasn't big into that personally back in Alabama. I never had the desire to go to those. It wasn't really my thing. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to agree. There was really none of that in Alabama. You had to get creative to try and figure out anything there. But anyways, with that, it is time for us to move on into the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person who put in the lucky last question of the night?
And this one goes to Twitch, who said, do you think Putin may lash out and use a thermobaric weapon and anytime soon?
Oh, they've been using thermobarics the whole war. They've been using TOS-1 thermobaric launchers quite literally since the first months of the war. So the answer to that is they have been using those for a very, very long time, as long as the war has really been going at this point. So I hope that does address that the best we can. And with that, we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank y'all greatly for watching tonight. It's been an absolute honor and a pleasure to be able to cover this news for all of y'all once again. We're always honored to be able to put on a high-quality show, hopefully every single night. And we were able to see a peak viewership at 16.7 thousand people here at the peak, and 91,000 people have watched this show before it ended. ended. We thank you all so much once again for watching, and we will of course see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news from around the world. And if there is a short war video to be made, Enforcer Matt will be the one making that short war video. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, Haram Slava, long live the Late Spring Army, and long live the Republic.
And we will see you all tomorrow, by the way. And a huge shout out to everybody for joining us once again for another night of the news. And be sure to join us once again tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern at our usual time for the next 24 hours of the happenings around the world. And of course, we do appreciate you all for being here and choosing us as your news source yet again tonight. But of course, Slava Ukraine, Herom Slava, get some rest, and good night.